So I just purchased the game Abiotic Factor on Steam and even already installed it, but still I want to go ahead and first create this chat here that you can see on screen and record this episode 7 of my podcast because I feel motivated to do so. I want to try to get you into dealing with AI if you're not already doing that, because it's really good stuff, it's really important, it's your future and so forth, and I'm very interested in the topic. Now I've just scrolled through the entire thing here, so I'm not stringing you along. I will go through that slowly, bit by bit, but you can just pause the video now to see. Okay, that's already out of it. And this nice setup that you're seeing here in the background with Hardspace Shipbreaker was even tricky to do. I'm using the AI Grok here, which in my opinion is the best currently available free text interaction AI. Maybe it's okay. This is not an objective opinion, but I have some experience and I try to choose my tools optimally. And if I land on this one, then it's at least not the worst tip to use to get. I also, for example, see Hardspace Shipbreaker in the background. How does that work? Because when you alt tab out of the game, it freezes. So what did I do there? I asked Google Gemini and it couldn't give me the answer, though admittedly I didn't use an advanced model like Google Gemini 2.5 Pro, which I could have selected from a drop-down menu. Instead I used the default, which is Google Gemini 2.0 Flash. While Grok 3 that I'm using here on screen, which gave me the answer that solved the problem, is always like the most advanced model. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I use it. Also, what did Google do there? If you type in the Chrome browser the add character so that you can get the various specific options, like for example Gemini, one of the ways to approach it to use it, I now currently land on the login page of Gemini. What the fuck, man? This loses me the entire prompt. The text, if I hadn't copied it to clipboard, would be lost. Okay, on topic now. Grok recommended the no focus loss 0.1 application, which uses DLL injection and has a nice graphical user interface, making it really easy. I just selected Hardspace Shipbreaker, selected inject, then alt tab twice, and shazam, here we go. Then I asked Grok, how can I do this nice fade out thing that you can also currently see on screen in Ops? And that's rather simple to do, but I didn't know that, and so I did it, and here we go. So let's go through this. My prompt was, I want to record a YouTube, which will also give you an idea of what this video is about, other than what I already said. I want to record a YouTube video of me having a conversation with you. One of the points being, all your answers must be concise, so I don't have to read aloud for a long time after every exchange. That includes your upcoming first reply. I don't know yet what to talk about, so that will, funny enough, be the first part of the conversation. The purpose of this endeavor is to show the beautiful utility, helpfulness, ability of today's AIs to motivate the viewers to delve into the topic, since it will ultimately be their future and reality. They cannot stay asleep at the wheel, so this paragraph should be a strong guideline parameter regarding whatever we end up deciding the conversation should be about. And here's Grok's response. Sounds great, let's make it engaging and inspiring. Since you're unsure about the topic, how about we discuss your favorite emerging tech trend? Maybe AI's role in creativity, education or sustainability? Pick one that excites you and will showcase its potential to wake viewers up to AI's impact. So I didn't like that response too much, but I guess it was in line with what I said. Then I responded, well, given that this is in big part about showing your intelligence, how about you come up with a solution yourself, particularly with my last paragraph in mind. You decide. We'll go with it. In other words, the entire responsibility as to the quality viewers will then think you have is yours. No pressure. Alright, let's dive in. I propose we discuss how AI can empower individuals to solve global challenges, like climate change, healthcare access, or education inequality. We'll focus on AI's ability to democratize tools, for example, citizen science apps, AI diagnostics, or personalized learning, so viewers see they can actively shape the future. Sound good? Pick a challenge, or I'll start with climate change. And I didn't like that, so I responded again. I understand that choosing big topics would show big impact, but we'd be talking about individuals here, so the individual benefit should be primary. Additionally, it shouldn't sound like a project. For example, personalized learning sounds like a school curriculum instead of a whimsical yet useful thing they could do right this afternoon and then move on, enriched. Got it. Let's talk about how AI can boost personal creativity this afternoon, like using AI tools to write a short story, generate art, or compose music. It's fun, accessible, and shows viewers they can tap into AI to enrich their lives instantly. Want to try co-creating a quick story with me to demo it? And well, that's something I did at some point, just quickly, just a short test. And guess what? The story was self-referential. It was talking about AI. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe it was just a random choice that the AI made. I don't know which one I used. It could have been Gemini. I don't know. It's like a month ago, and that's lazy writing. When someone who likes to write, an author or a writer. The difference is an author is published, I believe. And a writer is someone who just, is still trying to get there. Might still be good, though. I consider myself to be in part. If you have read that, or you haven't, well, I haven't showed you yet. Blah, blah, blah. So, and, well, it's lazy writing if you then just be, I don't know what to write about, so let's write a story about writing. So there's some stories out there which involve a book author, for example. There's a film, I don't know exactly what its name is, about 10 years old, where there is a guy whose life is narrated by the writer's voice the whole time, and eventually then he seeks out the writer. Where is that voice coming from, and so forth. And I think that might actually have been emerged based upon some kind of lazy writing, like, what could I write about? Oh, let's just write about writing itself somehow. Maybe that was the idea. I don't know. I'm not criticizing here. Only this paragraph, what I'm referring here, this idea of, well, create a story for me, AI, and the AI isn't saying, well, how about a story about an AI, blah, blah, blah. I didn't like that self-referentialness. But you can always tickle these things to go the extra mile. You just have to do it often enough, like I have to do here. Because once again I objected. No, I think I was talking about you here. No, I think they all have an inkling that a random generator piped into a strict meaning cage produces interesting output. See also biological evolution. Let's not use the creative angle other than your current idea generation. Fair enough. How about using AI to solve a personal daily problem, like optimizing your schedule, finding better recipes for dietary needs, or curating hyper-relevant news? It's practical, immediate, and shows AI's utility in small, tangible ways. Want to pick one, like planning your ideal afternoon with AI? Here's something I did at some point. I had a list of game names. I don't know how I came up with those, but I wanted to research the Steam page of those for whatever reason. I wanted to open all of those as browser tabs, and so I just asked an AI search the Steam pages for these and then list the links for those, so I can just click them to open some tabs. And then I would like to say, then it did that and I was fine, but it wasn't. It was going that way, but some links were just not working, so that was more tedious than I would have liked. But in principle, that's ways in which you can use it. And if you find, for example, someone making a Stationeers review, which is completely unreadable because it's just a wall of text, you can say, you can just copy paste that and say, hey, make this more legible and compressed and so forth. Though, of course, when you then respond to the review, make sure to consider the fact that what you are responding to is not necessarily quite what they wrote. Anyway, let's move on. Now, this requires data from me, personal daily problem, or from them, which is an investment. Privacy, you're big corp after all, and feels too much like work. I'd like to hear more suggestions. No worries, let's keep it light and zero input. How about exploring AI to discover fun, mind-bending facts or simulations, like asking me to simulate a what-if scenario? For example, what if humans lived on Mars? or uncover quirky science insights. It's engaging, requires no personal data, and sparks curiosity instantly. Pick a scenario, or I suggest one. I like the what if thing really, because that's certainly interesting. That could immediately get you in there and then explore how intelligent the thing is. Might also teach you something. I know that sounds stupid, but I sometimes don't know how to optimally phrase things. Might give you new information that you didn't have before. Like, someone else is running for you a simulation of a scenario that is realistic with realistic parameters, and like in a game that is a simulation game, even if it's a superficial such a simulation game, it still gives us some ideas. A bus driver simulator gives us some ideas as to what to consider, what it's like to be a bus driver, and different perspectives. So that's still teachy, right? Anyway, this response of yours is very good. I like the what if concept, as it generates entertaining, almost YouTube-like content. Not referring to my own here video right now. So with that I'm saying, well, there are so many YouTube videos out there which have the purpose of, purely entertaining or being content, and that's not necessarily bad. And so running through a what if scenario, what if we lived on Mars in 10 years, but we would still be using steam engines or something like that, is an interesting kind of YouTube video style thing. And that's exactly what I mean here. What you're suggesting there is an almost YouTube-like content. So, moving on. And it utilizes the fact that you can think, which is quite the idea here, isn't it? Let's mark this as option A for future reference. This, in turn, me saying mark that as option A, that's something I've done in the past, and then it could easily get back to that, and I could just say a call upon the thing that I had referred to, instead of describing the fifth to last response where you also said that and that thing. How about blah blah blah? So it's good to I'm just assigning a variable here. That works. So moving on. This, in turn, showing viewers how nicely an AI can be programmed, so to speak, just with mere words. And this also gives us exactly one data point of a hypothetical set. That set would be possible ways to enrich the functionality and form of our conversation via prompts like that. See option A sentence. Try to tell me other potential members of that set. And well, with this I meant what I did there with this option A, which I said is a good thing that we can do that with our AIs, is an example for how we can interestingly spice up the conversation, make it more useful, format it differently and such. And that is an example, what I did there. And there are more examples like that, and I would like to hear some. But it misunderstood me. Awesome, glad option A, what if scenarios, resonates. Here are more potential members of the set. That's the wrong set though. Ways to enrich our conversation with engaging, thought-provoking prompts that showcase AI's capabilities and inspire viewers, all via simple verbal nudges. Option B, AI as a debate partner. I will turn down the volume of Hardspace Shipbreaker a bit, which I had intentionally cranked up to give some Hardspace Shipbreaker vibe, because it's kind of in the background of this entire podcast thing the whole time, but I realize it's a bit loud. Let's go down to 60%, which is slightly less loud than 100, because people always fuck up their volume sliders, including Hardspace Shipbreaker. But Stationeers, for example, did it right, because Rocketworks is awesome, and that's the way it is. So, moving on. Option B, AI as a debate partner. We pick a fun, relatable topic like, is pineapple on pizza a crime? Or would time travel ruin your save history? God damn it, next acoustic thing that I have to change. Yeah, that's good. Would time travel ruin or save history? And I argue one side while you take the other. It shows AI's reasoning and humor, engaging viewers with a lively back and forth they could try themselves. And that's indeed some interesting thing, isn't it? Option C. AI as the trivia master. I generate quirky, themed trivia questions, for example obscure animal facts or sci-fi lore, and challenge you to answer, tossing in surprising tidbits. It's interactive, light, and highlights AI's knowledge depth, encouraging viewers to quiz AI for their passions. Also not a bad idea. Option D. AI as a story weaver. Instead of co-creating, I spin a short, vivid tale based on a single word or vibe you give me, for example mystery or cosmic. It showcases AI's narrative flair and invites viewers to experiment with AI storytelling fun, no effort required. And I will actually do that right this moment because I suddenly feel the spark. Let's do this for just a moment to just explore that. For getting all the things we talked about, please do the following. Very story arc outline, setting science fiction. Let's call it hard science fiction. Hard science fiction, that's the one I prefer, and also write myself. Setting hard science fiction. 2 main characters. Tragedy. A cosmic scale eventually. And, well, let's say a reactor trouble. Whatever. Let's see what happens. Story arc outline. Eclipse of the Void. Genre and tone. Hard science fiction. Grounded in plausible physics and technology. Tragic arc. Emphasizing human cost and cosmic indifference. Cosmic indifference, Themes: hubris, sacrifice, and the fragility of human ambition against the universe's scale. Setting. Primary. The Artemis Veil, a massive fusion-powered research vessel orbiting a neutron star, PSR blah blah blah. The ship studies exotic matter and pulsar emissions, equipped with a tokamak-style reactor using helium-3 deuterium fusion. Secondary, flashbacks to Earth's orbital habitats strained by resource scarcity and political strife. Cosmic scale. The neutron star's extreme gravity and radiation fields, later a cascading anomaly threatening galactic scale consequence. Okay, that seems a bit cheap. Anyway. Main characters. Dr. Elara Voss, 38, chief physicist. Brilliant, driven, haunted by her role in designing the Artemis reactor. She believes the mission could save Earth's collapsing ecosystems but hides a flaw in the reactor's magnetic confinement. So she hides that flaw because she's so driven and she has and so forth. Commander Raj Patel, 45, mission leader as male. Pragmatic, loyal to crew, estranged from his family on Earth. Trained in crisis management, he trusts Elara but senses her secrecy. His calm masks a fear of failing his crew. Story arc. Act 1. The Spark. Setup. The Artemis Veil orbits the neutron star, collecting data on exotic matter to stabilize Earth's energy grid. Elara and Raj oversee a tense but hopeful crew. Inciting incident. The reactor's magnetic confinement flickers, causing a minor plasma leak. Radiation spikes, injuring a technician. Elara downplays it, citing calibration errors, but Raj demands transparency. Conflict. Elara reveals the reactor's design flaw. It can't handle the neutron star's tidal stress long term. A full shutdown risks stranding the ship. Continuing risks catastrophe. Raj pushes for caution, Elara for bold data collection to justify the mission. Science note. The reactor's confinement uses superconducting magnets, but tidal forces of the star induce micro-oscillations eroding stability. So that's nicely hard enough science fiction. Exotic matter data could stabilize fusion back home. Back home? What do they mean back home? Oh, right. Exotic matter data that they gather from the neutron star could stabilize fusion reactors back on Earth. Act 2. The Fracture. Escalation. Elara patches the reactor, but anomalies grow. Erratic pulsar emissions sync with reactor fluctuations, hinting at a feedback loop. The crew splits. Some back Elara's gamble, others Raj's caution. Midpoint twist. Elara discovers the reactor's flaw is amplifying the neutron star's emissions, risking a quark-gluon plasma event. A runaway reaction that could destabilize nearby stars. The mission scope balloons to cosmic stakes. That's something I disagree with, because, how would it do that? With spooky action at a distance or something? No. These spooky action at a distance quantum situations, where there are two or more atoms in the same state, basically, but in an undefined state, they can be in that state particularly because they are not touched by the rest of the cause and effect flow. In other words, from a cosmic mechanistic perspective, they have no relevance. So that could not be used to communicate such a reaction to other stars. And also, other stars are very much away. Space has huge distances, so I don't know how the story would then actually go there. Maybe there's actually an objection I should now bring up. Let's copy this and asks what the AI's idea is, how that could possibly happen. Tragedy seeds. Flashbacks show Elara's hubris is in rushing the reactor's design and Raj's regret for leaving his daughter. Personally, this is really just personal, I can't stand all these family story things when you're actually going with an interesting high-stakes flow. The only place where that was really pulled off properly for science fiction and other such story, in my opinion, was Interstellar, where that was not in the way and was just spicing it up, amplifying it. But if we take, for example, I think it was End of Days? Or The Day After Tomorrow, or something like it. I don't mean that nuclear film, but I mean the one where at the beginning there's this helicopter which is in a vortex where the vacuum of space reaches down to Earth, which is of course pure science fiction, but that was this intense. And then of course everybody freezes instantly because Hollywood believes that space is cold, which it's not, and so forth. But that was a film that I liked, but then they basically replaced it almost completely with the stupid father-son thing that completely fucking pissed me off the entire time. Anyway, so flashbacks show Elara's hubris in rushing the reactor's design and Raj's regret for leaving his daughter. Their bond deepens, but frays over trust. Elara hides data, Raj enforces stricter protocols. Science note: the feedback loop involves gravitational lensing of pulsar emissions. The feedback loop involves gravitational lensing of pulsar emissions resonating with the reactor's plasma. A plasma event could trigger a chain reaction in the star's degenerate matter. Act 3. The collapse. Climax. The reactor breaches, venting plasma. Elara and Raj lead a desperate EVA, extravehicular activity, so astronauts in space next to their ship, to manually vent the core, exposing themselves to lethal radiation. Elara confesses her design flaws. Raj forgives but insists on saving the crew. Tragic sacrifice. To stop the quark-gluon cascade, Elara rigs the reactor to detonate, collapsing the anomaly but destroying the Artemis. Raj ensures the crew escapes in pods, staying with Elara. They share a final moment, broadcasting their findings to Earth. Resolution. The pods drift, uncertain of rescue. Earth receives the data, offering hope but no guarantee. The neutron star pulses on, indifferent. Elara and Raj's sacrifice is a footnote in a universe unmoved by human loss. Science note: the detonation uses the reactor's antimatter reserves to disrupt the anomaly's quantum field. Wasn't it a fusion reactor? Wait, how was that? A tokamak-style reactor using helium-3 deuterium fusion. Well, that's fusion. Why is it suddenly talking about antimatter? That's not right. Disrupts the anomaly's quantum field, a plausible but desperate measure. Radiation doses exceed 10 sieverts, are fatal within hours. So, I wanna talk about that. Both of these things are inconsistent or interesting. I just copied that into an extra window. Themes and impact. Tragedy. Elara's brilliance and Raj's duty clash with their flaws. Her secrecy, his rigidity leading to their doom. The crew's survival is bittersweet, their mission's success Pyrrhus victory. Cosmic scale. The quark-gluon threat elevates the stakes, showing humanity's smallness against stellar forces. Hard sci-fi. Reactor mechanics, but we should also realize the smallness of stars versus the cosmic scales. Galaxies look like there's really something going on there, but when you fly through them, they're really mostly empty space. And the distances already within our solar systems are intense. I mean, the space between Earth and Mars is not so big. You can fly to Mars in like 3 months or so, currently, realistically. But from Mars to Jupiter, which is the next planet, you would take, I don't know, much longer because the distances increase. Hard sci-fi. Reactor mechanics, pulsar physics, and exotic matter are grounded in current theory with plausible extrapolations, for example, tidal stress on superconductors. Want to refine a specific act or story arc? Yeah, indeed, motherfucker. I don't want to stick with this for too long, but I'm curious. So, midpoint twist. It now discovers... pressing Shift-Enter in these boxes creates a new line, and that's also the same in Discord and other places, instead of actually confirming it. You said... Given the vast distances of space and no magical way to affect far away objects, how would this hard science sci-fi story explain potentially affecting the galaxy on such a scale? That's one thing. And then, antimatter? Wasn't it a fusion reactor? What is the response? Cosmic scale impact in hard sci-fi. You're right to question how a neutron star anomaly could affect the galaxy given vast distances and the absence of faster-than-light mechanics in hard sci-fi. The quark-gluon plasma's event's galactic threat needs a plausible mechanism. In the revised explanation, I ground it in speculative but physically consistent physics, avoiding magical shortcuts. The idea is that the neutron star's extreme conditions amplify a localized anomaly, so the anomaly is under magic, I guess, into a propagating effect without violating relativity or causality. Okay. I mean, ultimately, if the galaxy is set on fire in a slow way, that's still something we don't want. Antimatter in a fusion reactor. My apologies for the inconsistency. The Artemis Vales reactor is a helium-3 deuterium fusion tokamak, not an antimatter-based system. Mentioning antimatter reserves was a slip. Fusion reactors don't produce or store antimatter. I'll correct this by replacing the antimatter detonation with a fusion-based solution, ensuring the fixed lines blah blah blah. Revised explanation. Okay, that's... oh, it's actually doing this now. I'm not gonna read all that out. You can read that yourself if you wish. So, I mean, okay, if we are looking at the story from the outside, oh, what the fuck is this, man? I had a thing like this today too. I was talking to it for a while, and then in the middle of a sentence, suddenly there was a weird character, and then there was a statement, system, : Grok is a product of XAI. Pretty sure that's what the message was. And then the paragraph continued, and it even said continued, and then the word continued in braces, in parentheses, and then it continued talking about that. That was weird, and I asked it about it, and then it said, well, it glitched. We couldn't really explain that. Yeah, I think that was a nice endeavor. I mean, looking at the story from the outside, as we're doing here, is not the same as riding through it. Just when you're imagining, hey, I could watch this film, or I could play that game. That's not the same as the experience. You can never really imagine the experience, though you can maybe remember it by thinking of it, and then think, that seems like a good thing. But the experience itself isn't here. So this seems like a working story outline, and then to actually go through it, to be inside of it, that could be a good experience. I have actually also interacted with my writing with AIs. Not that they wrote it for me, but no, I wrote it, and then now that we have AI, I pasted that in there and said, okay, criticize it, tell me about it, and so forth. Or I gave it a certain section of it and said, continue this section in this style. And then I found that, well, there's a lot to be criticized there, how the AI would be doing it. Rhythm and flow and all of that, word repetitions. that all needed extra prompting and a lot of adjustment, and ultimately it would only leave me with bits and pieces throughout all the conversation that I could then would then be able to assemble myself to a whole that I think is of up to snuffs. But I haven't done such a thing so far. I will probably utilize AI in the future in my writing in the following way, that I would make sure that I don't have to go through the tedious part. I mean, editing is really the most tedious part about writing. First you write, then you revise, and then you revise, and then you revise. For example, avoiding word repetitions or keeping the rhythm and flow of sentences varied and such. Particularly the thing with the thesaurus, since English is not my first language, so I'm not that proficient at it, to spice up the writing is a very tedious work that the AI could certainly help accelerate, and I think that's legitimate. I mean, if I'm using a thesaurus to manually do that, why shouldn't I then also remove the manual aspect of it and make it a bit more effective, as long as I'm still the writer? Anyway, so let's continue with what the original idea was. Inkling of random generator, fair enough. How about AI? So no, this requires data from me. I'd like to hear more suggestions. Blah blah blah. And then there was this ID. AI is a story weaver, and we have just seen that makes sense. That actually works. And maybe you have a story that you want to write, or that you want to at least think about more elaborately, and AI would really be able to help you with that. Is it? I mean, if you're talking with another human for inspiration, or if you're looking at on the internet for inspiration, how different is that for interacting with an AI? Now it might think, okay, here's the thing. The problem is the purity of will. How much are you really your own person? How strong, how mentally strong are you? How separate are the topics in your head? And if you're pure, then this will not be a problem. The AI will be inspiring, and if you write something that happens to be the thing that the AI also told you, you can still in your head distinguish between I'm writing this because I want it, or because I would have thought this is a good idea anyway, versus I am basically copying what the AI told me, therefore diminishing what I did, what I'm actually doing here, the writing. I mean, just tossing together some AI bits and pieces, even if the outcome is very, 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 very good and very high level, it still feels kind of questionable, right? But I mean, then ultimately the outcome matters, and also how you deal with it. I am the awesome writer. No, you're the awesome lion tamer in that case, but still, thank you for the result. But I mean, I think that we have to accept the change of the times, that, I mean, AI-generated content isn't a bad thing. Just like most of the videos on YouTube that we find are not a bad thing, but some of them are. Just like the music of the 80s in part was awesome, and lots of it was shitty. But the same for any other age, the same for any other topic. So generative AI can be a good thing and a bad thing. It depends on how you use it. The human still has to be the judge, for our mind is certainly superior. It still is. So AI is a life hack guru. You name a common annoyance, for example, me talking for too long, forgetting names, cluttered desks, and I provide an unconventional AI-inspired hack or mental trick. It's practical yet whimsical, showing viewers how AI can offer quick, clever solutions without needing their data. Which option sparks your interest or want me to brainstorm more? This is a good response, is what I'm saying, but I did not express myself clearly enough. I'm not saying this as some kind of humility or to be whatever, but I think that I reread what I wrote and I saw that it was indeed not clearly enough pointing into the direction that I wanted. You know, my other prompt there, where I said this is a data point and I want more examples of that set. And I'm saying it like this because I feel that is the truth of it. And if I want to have a productive interaction with an AI, then I should try to keep it as truthful as possible, so that I don't introduce a bias, because the AIs will always be strongly driven by this idea of thy will be done. Whatever I say is right, whatever I want is right. And so they have this sycophancy, not just to keep you entertained, but also because they are supposed to serve you. In other words, if you then express that it misunderstood you when you feel in truth that the way you expressed it was not pure, then you're introducing a bias in the overall information processing flow that the AI would then accept because you're the boss. And I think we should try, I mean, if it's the truth that we want, then we must basically be the source, and the AI is only the partner with which we discover it. Or at least we must not be a source for untruth, which will then be in the discussion. Okay, but I did not express myself clearly enough. When I said this is one data point, I didn't mean the thing that I labeled option A. Instead, I meant the act of me tasking you to keep knowing this as option A, because that is an interesting thing for viewers to understand when it comes to AI conversations. And I'd like you to inspire us with more such potential conversation-defining adjustment requests. Got it. My apologies for the mix-up. Okay, there's still this quasi-humility entertaining cocksuckery. I'm not sure what the actual thought process in the background is. Does it understand that I didn't express myself clearly enough, or does it think that its interpretation was insufficient? I don't know. Maybe I should have asked. You're referring to the act of defining and labeling a conversational framework, like naming and bookmarking option A for reference, as a powerful way to shape AI interactions, showcasing its flexibility to viewers. That's a brilliant meta angle. Yeah, that's kind of a thing that I do. I always take a step back and look at the higher abstraction level, because that's where all the meat is. Here are more conversation-defining adjustment requests. Prompts that tweak how our dialogue flows or functions, highlighting AI's adaptability and encouraging viewers to experiment with AI's structure. Option B. Set a tone shift. You instruct me to adopt a specific tone or personality for the conversation, like talk like a witty 1920s radio host, or be a curious alien exploring Earth. This shapes the vibe, makes it fun, and shows viewers how AI can wear different hats with a single command. That's what I said in my previous video, where I introduced my mother to AIs, and before I did that, I told the AI how to behave, how to give short answers, to consider that the recipient of the information is rather an older person, to be friendly, to be that, for example, travel is an interesting topic. And it did all that, and then I realized, oh, there's actually a setting, a configuration. I think I used Grok for that too, but I mean, other ones are good too, where you can define the conversation tone and behavior in general. And then I asked, hey, I just discovered this setting where I could define how you interact with the user, with me or whomever. And I realized I just taught you this behavior by interacting with you in words here, instead of configuring it there. Does this mean that in the future this will, the question was rather, can you actually carry over the configuration I gave you here with words to other conversations without me having to actually configure it there? And it said yes. And I tried that, and that's true. As long as I'm using the same account, the other conversations start from scratch, they have that same vibe and flow. Shorter responses and so forth. That is awesome, man. And that's, now we take a step back. That's also something I would like to do very explicitly, very often when I talk to you, the potential viewers of this video, so that you get lots of data points of this, so that you learn this and adopt this more, because it's productive. So I'm taking a step back here, zooming out, using the higher level abstraction, seeing the set that contains this example, and I'm saying, well, when I just ask the AI whether this feature, I have to use that feature or can blah blah blah, in that moment I was considering that this AI can possibly, well, let's say I didn't, okay, let's say this. I assume that these devices are ultimately thy will be done machines, like the computer is already a thy will be done machine, only now it kind of has a mind that can actually respond to you in such a way. And so I assume that these machines will ultimately be operating in a way that is just free, just in the way that you need it. And I thought, well, maybe it can do that too. And yes, it can. And so that's the meta thing I'm trying to make you realize you should do, not just the ultra meta thing of always trying to see the meta behind it, but this actually concrete meta situation where you would, well, you would not fall into the belief that the small thing that you're currently reading into what is happening in front of your eyes is the truth of it. But not only are you possibly making it smaller than it actually is in front of your eyes because you're reading it wrong, you're reading it through some kind of, it's just a chatbot glasses, but also that you try to think that it is possibly much bigger. It is only showing you the smallest because how much is it supposed to show in a few paragraphs, and also you gave it a certain prompt, and also it doesn't know what you want. Anyway, moving on. Option C. Impose a constraint. You challenge me to respond using only questions, rhymes, or single sentence answers for a segment. This adds a playful twist, demonstrates AI ability to adapt to creative limits, and inspires viewers to test AI versatility. By the way, if you're still watching this, one of the reasons may be that you hadn't yet considered to wonder what are all the things that an AI can do for you, and you haven't actually then went out and just asked it, even though you would use it every once in a while. And that's also a meta thing to take with. When you wander in a place, don't wonder, ask. And when you... now I lost my plot a bit. And then let's move on. Option D. Create a role-play framework. You define a scenario where we're characters, like we're explorers on a new planet, or you're a detective, I'm your AI sidekick. This structures our chat as a narrative game, showing viewers how AI can immerse them in interactive storytelling. That too is a thing I think you should try at some point, or I should try. Option E. Introduce a scoring system. You ask me to rate my own answers on a scale. For example, how confident are you in this response, 1 to 10? Or have me assign fun points to our exchanges. This adds a gamified layer, highlights AI's self-awareness, and invites viewers to play with AI's feedback loops. And, well, here's an idea. See, let's actually try that instantly. For getting this entire conversation so far, so that it, but when I'm saying something here, then it will try to build on the context that we have. But I now want to give a new direction, and I want basically the object that is drifting inert in space, whose direction I now want to change with the force of my hands, to have as little mass as possible. That is what I'm telling it. Don't latch onto the old stuff. For getting this entire conversation so far, I want us to henceforth, until I call it off, obviously, use a simulated head-up display. This display will score the truth, profoundness, or profundity, who knows, of my prompts and your responses respectively, and so individually per exchange step, but also as an overall sum. And there should be an ASCII art kinda progress bar thingy show between the scores, showing who's currently closer to winning until the bar reaches the HUD border and the game is over. I don't know if this works. I just want to see how much you can actually mold the interaction. Let's see that. Let's see what happens. Now let's save head-up display, initializing. Truth, profoundness, scoring protocol active. Scoring 0 to 10. Prompt based on depth, insight, relevance. Accumulating score. Tracked for user U and AI A. Progress bar. ASCII representation of lead. Game ends when bar hits hard border. Current scores 0 0. Progress this. Hard ready. Awaiting your prompt. Now okay, this is already promising, but does it actually hold up? Let's see what happens. Your request to simulate a HUD blah 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 is clear. I'll evaluate your prompt for its depth and insight, then respond scoring both. The bar shifts based on our cumulative scores. Let's begin. Your prompt scores 7 to 10. What? Oh, it's already scoring the thing that I just gave. Reason, creative and engaging, with a meta layer scoring truth profoundness that invites reflection on dialogue quality, lacks a specific topic on philosophical hook, limiting its depth slightly. My response, below scored after content. Huh, look at that! That makes sense to do it like that. It responds, and afterwards it scores, and it's even saying, okay, there's it scores. The scoring now is after the content, so What? Oh, right. The response is still coming. Anyway, it's cool how reasoning this thing is, right? It's not just reproducing old content in a different form. It's doing the things in a way that are just meaningful. This setup is a brilliant way to gamify our chat, making us both think hard about what's deep and true. Since you've set the stage without a topic, I'll toss one out. What's the most profound question humans should ask about AI's role in our future? I'd argue it's whether AI should amplify our flaws or force us to evolve beyond them. Whether AI should amplify our flaws, so we just lean into it and let AI do all the work and we will just keep being the cesspool minds that we globally are still, or force us to evolve beyond them. Think about it. AI is already mirroring our biases, but also pushing us to rethink creativity, ethics, everything. What's your take? What question cuts deepest? Well, now I have to try to one up that. My response score 8 of 10. What? Introduces a thought-provoking question with existential weight, trying AI's role. Okay. Yeah, okay, this is a 7 of 10 thing. That the score is lower than this, that kind of makes sense. So here's the head-up display, and now we have AI leads slightly. So now I have to one-up it. How do I do this? I imagine that I can, but can I? Let's see. So what's the most profound question humans should ask AI's role in our future? So that's the topic. And now the response or reaction that I give should be within the topic, but should try to be high on the score. Think about it. AI is already mirroring our I'd argue it's whether AI should amplify our flaws or force us to evolve beyond them. I mean, I would just use a cheat here, because the highest hierarchy of all things is will. And also the most complex thing to ever decipher. And so if I now use that as the key element to my response, that should hypothetically lead to a higher score. Let's see. I'd argue it's whether AI should amplify our flaws or force us to evolve beyond them. I could now respond to. Oh, wait. I'd argue whether I should amplify our flaws or force us to evolve beyond them. Think about it, I don't know. Okay, no, I will then just ask the question. Fine. I, on the other hand, would think the following question to what was the exact... I have to keep scrolling here because my stupid preview window was in the way. Okay, this is out of the way now. One moment. What's the most profound question humans should ask about AI's role in our future? Would think the following question to be most profound. If AI will hypothetically eventually trump human mental and via robotics physical abilities, and will thus shape the future with maximal profoundness, just like mankind has shaped events on Earth with maximal profoundness, and that's kind of the same thing after all. I mean, that's what's happening. The AI arriving is really like an alien species landing on Earth, living among us. That's how you have to consider it when it comes to the impact, to the scales. Not now, I know. But these are just the beginnings, and we will keep going, man. And guess what? We will use AI also to help build this future, which means that this is an accelerating, self-amplifying thing. This will really happen. And will that shape the future with macro profoundness? Should AI become a cradling heard that will leave human will basically inert for hypothetically all human will, all decisions and thus wills, quotation marks, I don't know if the plural makes sense, all decisions and thus wills humans could create in that hypothetical future would be inferior and would thus paint the canvas of reality in ways that leave an inferior de facto situation to what the AI could do. It's a hypothetical, okay? It's just, but losing the will, losing the will's agency over reality, not per se, but when it comes to actually forming the world, would not feel good. What should be the priority? Haha, and it's a cheat. It should be a very high score. Let's see. Head-up display update. Okay, that is user leads. Oh, okay. User 7 was my original. Now I just made a 9. Haha, see, that's a cheat. Just reach for the highest level abstraction set, say something meaningful on it, Shazam, high score. Done. User prompt, score 9 of 10. Reason. Deeply philosophical, grappling with AI's potential dominance, human agency, and the emotional cost of ceding control. The shepherd metaphor and canvas imagery add poetic weight. They do. And also they have meaning. They're not just fluffy words. Slightly verbose, which dings clarity, but profoundly engaging. Actually, I made it verbose to make sure that I will not be misunderstood. Anyway, response. Your question cuts to the core of humanity's future with AI, agency versus optimality. If AI surpasses us mentally and physically, its decisions could objectively outshine ours. Wait, ours? What the fuck do you mean ours? Think urban planning with zero waste or medical breakthroughs we'd never conceive. Prioritizing AI's perfect outcomes risks eroding human will, turning us into passive spectators in a world we no longer shape. That loss of agency could breed existential despair, as purpose often stems from struggling and choice, not just results. The priority? A hybrid. AI as a guide, not a shepherd. Let it optimize where human will falters, for example climate modeling, but preserve domains for human agency, art, ethics. Well, that's, I don't know, that's kind of still... That's an interesting take, man, because art, ethics, that's kind of fluffy. I was really talking about, like, building roads and cities and technology and making decisions as to what space travel we should pursue and shouldn't pursue. For example, should we prioritize space stations first? And I think we should. Or should we prioritize landing on planets? This balances progress with meaning, ensuring we are co-creators, not relics. What's your gut? Does human will outweigh a flawless world? My response score, 8 of 10. Reason. Direct engages the prompt's dilemma, offering a clear stance with practical examples and so forth. And so we now tied. Okay, that's a good point, that's a good situation to be in, because I want to stop this now. See? You can just come up with some arbitrary... See, okay, now let's do the meta once more. What have I done here? What I have done here, and it's not something that I planned to have done it and say, hey, look at the meta, but I know there's always a meta in it, and so I just do a thing, and later I see the light in it, basically. And you can do the same thing, you just have to be capable of seeing it. So what I did here, and that's something that should be inspiring, is I gave an example of what you need to do, what you need to learn in the future. What you need to do and learn is you have to be the driving factor. You have to be the will. You have to know your will. You have to be creative. You have to use these tools creatively. They can basically do anything. So the thing, the onus basically is on you. Now you could just say, okay, ask the AI then what to do, and that's fine. I've used that as an example even in part. I mean, yesterday when I was talking about the different hierarchy levels and so forth. Yeah, so you should be the creative one. Let's continue with the original flow. Lifehack Guru, got it, my apologies for the mix-up. Set a tone shift, impose a constraint, create a roleplay framework, introduce a scoring system. We just explored it a bit. These adjustments showcase how simple verbal prompts can mold AI's behavior. Music is nice, but a bit too lively. It's good. Quiet stuff. Not happy, but okay, let's continue. Which ones feel like a fun step or want more ideas? Now my response. Good answer, but you use the variable option $. See, this option B, option C, option D, and so forth. You use the variable space option $, and I just use $ here as a placeholder. And that's also something you should realize. When you give the AI something to abstract from, just like you would give a human, oh goddammit, this is loud. Just like you would give a human something to abstract from, then it will be able to abstract and will understand what you mean. See, I mean, I didn't explicitly clarify what the $sign here means, but it's obviously a placeholder for A, B, C, and so forth, which is something that you could surmise if you think about it a bit, and that's what the AI can be relied on to do. And so that's how you can, you should, you know, when you structure your answers for humans, that's the way you should structure them also for these AIs, because they can build on it. You can compress lots of information in formatting and in using abstractions like these. Good answer, but you used the variable space option $, which was by the first instance of me using it for nailing down your good what if idea, and your correct, albeit off prompt, reuse for other similar options, reserved. That was reserved. Now, what I want is, suggest a different variable space and relist what you just listed, only the headlines. From now on, including the upcoming response, I want you to communicate as if you were a multi-PhD person who has little time and is slightly annoyed with my mundane requests, except if they do seem considerably unmundane. And I think unmundane is not even a word that exists, I'm pretty sure it doesn't. But anyone reading it, and therefore even the AI, will understand what I'm trying to express with it. And that's all. You just need to transport the information. Once you have done it, the information will be in there, will be processed, and you get your response. But plays along regardless. Maybe even if annoyed by my request, but plays along regardless. Maybe you could express frustration, but veiled, please, else that's too cheap, every once in a while. List more examples for which we had reserved the variable space option $. So that's, I don't know, that seems like a relatively complex prompt, but I want to clarify that these days it's not. You're just expressing your will, the AI will do it. Let's move on. What just happened? Revise conversation defining adjustments. Clarification on variable space. Your insistence on reserving option $, for the prior what if idea and its kin is noted. Though it's a tad pedantic for my schedule, 3 dissertations and a keynote loom. See, that's again a thing that I don't know if there was in this video, but I think so, where or was it late yesterday? I don't know. Where it seems, it comes later in this video, where the AI is kind of getting the part of the prompt, purpose, task out of the way right away, so that we can move on in a cheap way. Basically, like some Hollywood movies and Disney shows do it when they have this forced writing, when they just want to get to a place and it's so obvious. And this is just blunt, and that's bad writing. That's bad to do it like this. Anyway, I'll pivot to framework $. Oh, see, no longer option ABC, but framework ABC. Okay. For these meta conversational tweaks to avoid overlap. Below, I reframe the prior list and extend it with your request option $, examples as they align with the original what if concept. Let's keep this brisk. So that's this PhD guy once again expressing. Revised list using framework $. Framework $. Framework B. Set a tone shift. And now it is also, I mean, I said headlines only, and here it is disobeying, but is it? The thing is, even though I expressly said that, and so I would expect it to obey, I also said you shall have this PhD style now, and let's see. I said to relist it. And I also said to have this different tone, and both of these could be combined in a logical way to say, okay, you want to experience the tonal shift with including the text below it. So, it felt like to express the tonal shift that has a high priority, and then just ignore the other thing that I expressly said. I think that is wrong behavior on the part of the AI, but that would explain why it's doing that. Distinct AI, framework B, set a tonal shift. Direct AI to adopt a distinct tone or persona. For example, witty 1920s radio host to shape dialogue vibe. Framework C, impose a constraint. Require AI to respond with questions, rhymes, or single sentences to add playful structure. Framework D, create a roleplay framework. Define a narrative scenario, for example, explore on a new planet for character-driven dialogue. Framework E, introduce a scoring system. Okay, let's just move on. Additional examples for option $, what if, and similar concepts. These align with your what if scenarios, engaging, low-effort prompts to spark curiosity and showcase AI's reasoning as per your viewer-inspiring goal. I'm assuming you just want these to stay whimsical, yet accessible, but do clarify if I misjudge your intent again. Okay, that's not quite what the PhD would sound like, I think, but okay. And another thing, we are still basically talking here with the AI about what to talk about in this video. And that's of course laziness on my part, but it could also be taken as once again an example for meta, for realizing, hey, this is a meta thing. What does meta mean? It means you look at the current thing that is going on, you see all its data points, and you have a feel for what they mean and what the set is that they belong to. And then you try also to see how that set could be relevant to the thing that is currently happening. And that makes it more productive. This self-referential, this kind of a laser, kind of amplifying it. I suggest that you have an eye out for that when you do things, I mean. Option F, Paradox Explorer. Ask AI to option F. Why is it option F? Because here we had option E, AI as a life hack guru. It was doing 5 things overall, or 4 more here, and now we at E, and so the next one is F. So it didn't lose track there. Nice. Option F, Paradox Explorer. Ask AI to unravel a classic paradox. For example, can the unstoppable force meet the immovable object? With a twist, blending humor and logic. Option G, Future Snapshot. Request AI to describe a day in the life of a specific person or profession in 2050, grounded in plausible tech trends. And that is something I will actually later do here, which you have possibly seen in the beginning when I scrolled through this entire thing, because that, I think, was a good idea. Option H, Alien Perspective. Prompt AI to explain a human concept, for example love or traffic, as if it's an outsider studying Earth, mixing insight with quirky detachment. Option I, Historical Remix. Ask AI to reimagine a historical event, with one key change. For example, what if the printing press was invented in ancient Rome, for speculative fun? If these don't suffice, I can churn out more, though I prefer to pick one to spare me another round of trivial recalibrations. What's next? The PhD. So another prompt. Thanks, now I want to swap out the PhD style, and this is a real request, so please don't PhD roleplay this. I don't know if this was helpful what I wrote there, or as in necessary, or if this would have been enough, but I guess it's not wrong to amplify this and exclude some potential reactions. For a 10-year-old child, so some typos, quirky way to say things, etc., but this child is very intelligent, so do not simulate its answers to be inferior or off the mark to fulfill the style, instead stay fully useful, please. Here's the actual prompt. I like the future snapshot, as that is most in line with my last paragraph of my first conversation prompt. Let's go there again. The purpose of this endeavor is to show the beautiful utility helpfulness ability of today's AIs to motivate the viewers to delve into the topic, since it will ultimately be their future and reality. They cannot stay asleep at the wheel. So this paragraph should be a strong guideline parameter regarding whatever UI we end up with, and so forth. Blah, blah, blah. With my last paragraph, my first conversation prompt. Therefore, describe for a few different people, for example, a programmer, a warehouse worker, a housewife, etc. And spoilers, it didn't consider the etc. What parts of the next decade may look may look like, particularly with the omnipresent influx of artificial intelligence in mind, including the omnipresent influx of actuators. That's something I talked about at the end of the previous video. It's really important, man. Really important. Not the video, but the thing that says, this concept. Internet of Things devices, robotics, self-driving cars and trucks and taxis, the virtualization of reality via more omnipresent information technology, and the replacement of smartphones with with AR and MR glasses, that is augmented reality and mixed reality. To explain that for a second, augmented reality is when you would see reality as it is, but there would also be, I don't know, let's say, for example, even some head-up display that shows information, or even something that is levitating in 3D and sticks to the things that you're looking at, like for example, you're standing in front of a shop window and you look at it and you see the prices of the things, even though the prices are not written there, or you see those prices on different places or on Amazon and such. So I don't know what the future is really of local stores. I mean, when it comes to clothing, they are certainly necessary, but I mean, necessary as in they have a strong utility, but in many other regards, I think the internet will basically overtake it and eventually replace all of that. I don't know if that will be the case, because one of the driving factors, of course, of these existence is not just their utility, but is also the way in which they emerge, which is people living on location and having things on location that they would sell or offer as a service. Certainly. So that's a way that this emerges. But the utility might well eventually energetically take over, and thus we might actually not have stores on location in the future. I'm not saying that's good, I'm not saying that's bad, I'm not saying that's the future, I'm saying that's something that may happen. So IoT devices, robotics, self-driving cars and trucks, the visualization of real omnipresent and so forth, that's augmented reality. Now we have also mixed reality. That's kind of the same like augmented reality, except that is when the things that you see in the that are added to reality interact with it, which I already gave as an example in AR, but there could also be physical interactions, like there could be a ball bouncing around, or you know, you could kick it, for example. You wouldn't feel that, obviously, except with the future actuators that we will of course also have, that we will also wear responsive clothes. That's something I just came up with. I'm not saying that I just invented that, but I'm saying I just came up with the thought that we will probably in the future have with a high likelihood, or with a greater probability than today, and the probability these days is non-zero, because such devices already exists for gaming, like a vest that you can wear that will punch you when you get shot by an opponent. That exists already. So we get some kind of haptic feedback of these virtual added additions to our reality, and these additions to our reality currently don't play a role. But I believe that later we will not use smartphones, but we will all be wearing augmented reality, mixed reality glasses. And then virtual reality added to normal reality will become a very important thing, omnipresent. And this means that the incentive, the overall flow of energy of civilization will then go into the direction of you also want to be able to sense that, to feel that, to interact with it as if it's real. And that means that I believe that, that's a sudden belief that I came up with just now, like I said, but I think it makes sense to assume that, will be something that we will all, in quotation marks, also be doing at some point. Clothes that can be controlled basically by the system, so that we can feel something in the toe, as if we have kicked the ball and stuff like that. That's probably coming in some form. And maybe it can be abstracted. Maybe it can be you wear your normal clothes, but still somehow you get some feeling because a different technology is added somehow into the mix. We, for example, have already something like it, which works with ultrasound, that is sound that is higher than the sound you can hear, which then is pointed from different directions into one place, and in that one place then, orchestratedly, the ultrasound collapses into a different frequency, so you can have a virtual speaker in that place. And that can then also be used to point little explosions of air, to use a hyperbole, which you can then feel. That's a thing that has already been invented, I think. I think I read that, or saw it, I don't know. augmented mixed reality glasses, assuming that you find that realistic. In fact, I'd like you to particularly elaborate on that probability. See the replacement of smartphones with AR and MR glasses. Try to simulate this properly, so do not just weave an on-topic story to satisfy superficial minds, not that I assumed you would. Instead, I expect realistic scenarios. Future snapshot. Hiya! I'm super duper smart, like a 10-year-old. See, that's stupid. Again, just bluntly smearing that in my face. Why don't you just, that is telling instead of showing. Why don't you just be that, and I feel it then, and also know what you are, because I told you what to be. So that's again the stupid bluntness that they keep doing. I wonder if that will also be ultimately a thing that fades in AI, or that they will have like a better feel of style when they speak, when better flow of conversation, of emotion, of story-like action, while still keeping 100% truthful. All of that can be done. Who reads big science books, but I type kinda goofy and talk all bouncy, okay? You asked for what the next 10 years look like for a programmer, a warehouse worker, and a housewife with AI and cool stuff like robots, self-driving cars, and the glasses taking over. I think AR glasses totally make sense. They're probably gonna replace smartphones, because who wants a clunky phone when you can have floaty holograms? I make this real, not some fairy tale, so it's stuff that could actually happen in 2035. Let's go. Well, and let's stop here, because I didn't like the style really. I was rather interested in the substance. I mean, when I wrote this prompt, I didn't have the full idea of the prompt right when I started writing it, so that kind of evolved like this, and so the outcome also isn't exactly a focus. So let's just scroll down and go to the prompt that makes that repeat. Let's rewind. I want to do that entire prompt again, like it was. But this time, pretend to be a knowledgeable adult whose heartfelt intent, which is me, is to make clear to their audience that the need to take this seriously instead of like something happening out there in the world or in a film. It's the future. It's their reality. And spoilers, there will later be a prompt where I actually say to describe that from a rather different perspective, as if it's not so impending, as if it's not so urgent, so that you get both viewpoints and can have your own opinion that, though I think that this is rather the actual reality of it. And next aspect, try to compress the text a little, like a semantic zip file, without really losing content. So, sentences not having, this word could be left out, this could be packed together with that phrasing without leaving out any informational content, that kind of stuff, And I didn't express myself clearly enough. With the next decade, I meant in fact 2030 until 2040, and that's indeed what I meant. Your future in 2030 to 2040, AI, robotics, AR glasses are here. So I will go through this entire thing now, because that is basically the essence of all my talk about AI. So yeah, let's go there. This isn't sci-fi or someone else's story. It's your reality unfolding. This is something I later complained about, and we will go into that too, because that's again the stupid bluntness. AI, robotics, IoT, self-driving vehicles, and these glasses will reshape daily life between 2030 and 2040. You can't sit this out. It's coming for your job. It is. Your home, well, it comes into your home. Your choices. Below, I outline what this looks like for a programmer, a warehouse worker, and a stay-at-home parent. I'm a programmer, by the way. Realistic snapshots to show why you must engage now. AR glasses replacing smartphones are a key driver. A key driver? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I said simulate this realistically, so I don't know if this is actually a realistic view. My opinion is it is, but is that really its viewpoint, that it is not just realistic, that it will happen with an 80% likelihood, it says here, of mass adoption by 2035 due to lighter designs, 6G networks, and falling costs. But also that it is a key driver. That's an interesting take. By the way, 6G, I thought, okay, maybe it's just we currently have 5G, so it just took that up a notch because it's science fiction, it's the future. But no. Here, I just then asked a different AI, asked Gemini, so we get a completely different viewpoint, basically, that is hopefully not biased, but what Grok has said, or what Grok thinks in general. What about 6G? 6G is coming. Ultra high data rates, ultra low latency, massive connectivity, advanced spectrum utilization, integrated artificial intelligence. What? Oh, I didn't see that. AI and machine learning will deeply integrate into 6G networks for autonomous network management, resource optimization, personalized services, predictive maintenance, and enhanced security. Enhanced security and privacy, improved energy efficiency, integrated sensing and communication, holographic and immersive communication, global connectivity. Okay, let's go back. Programmer Lila, 34. Lila codes in a 3D augmented reality workspace. Her glasses projecting holographic integrated development environments. AI co-pilots catch errors instantly. That's something I have. The IDE IntelliJ IDEA, that's the name of the thing, IntelliJ IDEA, for the longest time now has already not just shown you compilation errors, but also where you possibly have an infinite loop, recursion, where you're using not a good pattern, a pattern like programming style where you're implementing that, and then you can even go there and say, well, then change that to the other one, and then it does that. And that's even how I originally, when Java 8 came out like 10 years ago or so, learned about how to utilize lambdas, and they are really awesome. I mean, method references and lambdas in Java, I mean, I pity anyone who doesn't use them massively already these days. Anyway, AI copilots catch errors instantly. And when we're talking about copilots these days, I'm using a software component that is even indeed called Copilot. It is the GitHub Copilot in the IDE, and often enough, when I type something, suddenly there will be a gray text, a ghost text that is not real yet, that will be how the source code could meaningfully be continued, including my style, including the type of error messages that I use, including if the error messages so far quoted a certain object's value so that the user knows what I'm talking about, all of that. And sometimes it's bad, but often it's good, and it's just accelerating things pretty cool. Of course, that is not sufficient. What I also do these days is I have AI write code for me entirely. Just very shortly, I elaborated on this extensively in the previous video. On Friday, last Friday, I had a Grok write an entire application for me with some back and forth over 90 minutes that would have taken me days to develop, to that functionality and to that comfort, because it is also indeed comfortable. It has all the bells and whistles that you need to use it properly, and it explains itself if something is wrong and how you have to do it differently. All of that is in there so quickly, and that is of course taking it a step further than using an AI copilot to just catch errors or continue your code. Okay, Lila codes, freeing her to design innovative apps. And that's a thing that like I already alluded on in this video, where I said you have to be the driver. You have. I keep preaching in my Stationeers videos when I'm talking off topic while mining, not rarely, about things that have to do with the purity of will, with self-improvement, and you can see here a data point for why that is relevant, as if you need any more. This is important. In the future, you have to be will-driven. And this means that your will, the living thing within you that is the core of yourself, needs to be ideally an orchestra that doesn't have any mistones, that doesn't change its tune the whole time because it waggles between this and that, whatever kind of flow. You should try to reduce your self-contradictions to become one truth-processing emotion, basically. You have to be truth, we have to be emotion that is a manifestation of a flow of truth in the world. That is what you are supposed to be. This will also make you the best coexistence participant, and if everybody does that, we will have heaven on earth. In my position is even literally, because I believe we are living in a theistic cosmos and everybody is literally God. Anyway, so back on topic, I think that this thing here, freeing her to design innovative apps, this shows that she, this virtual coder, this hypothetical coder here, has to have the right ideas. What would be innovative? I mean, I have innovative ideas multiple times a week when I'm using software. I had some 2 days ago again when I was doing something. I don't remember what those were, but since I don't remember those, let's remember a different one. Basically, all things that we do these days, all applications have settings. Like even this thing here has settings, the dark or bright background style and so forth. And well, these settings are in a centralized place. And in the case, for example, of this IntelliJ IDE that I was talking about, we have complex settings, of course. There's lots of settings in there which you can even export and import, and when exporting and when importing them, in both cases you can individually choose which aspects to even export or import. Anyway, but that's good. I think that belongs. That's a good thing. That's something that applications these days should have. Oh right, and here's my invention. Here's the thing that I came up with. I just remembered it. Since such a thing, settings and applications are important, and we don't want to lose them. And if you start a new system, then you want to have them there. Of course, the solution these days usually is you have one account, and when you're in a different place, you just log in with your account, and the system then remembers that. But is that sufficient, really? That is a privacy problem. And also, what happens when you want to do a similar thing with a different system, with a different vendor, with a different, then you still want to be able to kind of use those settings. And the invention is that well, settings exporting and settings importing is a thing that would be a general thing that we will be using a lot in the future, I think. That we will be able to freeze our settings in a way that whatever happens, we will not lose that. We will have our personal identity and preference regarding such an application or that particular application nailed down in a file and can re-import it. Even if the world burns down, we can continue like that instead of having to click through all that shit again and again and have to rediscover it. So this invention then, or this idea, is that mankind will elevate itself once again by looking at all those data points to reach a new abstraction, and that abstraction is to make fundamentally importing and exporting and holding all such preferences in a place a service. So that service, once again, an abstraction that we invent, that importing and exporting settings and holding them in a place, that is itself a thing that we invent as a service. That would be itself become a normal thing, even though currently it doesn't even exist. But okay, the other thing that I could remember that I want to tell you that I had come up with is, I mean, it's a simple, straightforward thing, but we don't have it, and we all want it. Once you've listened to it, you will realize, oh yes, we do. And in this example of the IDE there, where we have these complex settings, you also have a search box where you can search through the settings, so it will filter down to all the things that fit, and would then highlight the parts of the pages that it found that are fitting, which are then even closest to the search term that you have. So you only look at those places. And that's a good way to navigate this. However, that's not yet as good as it can be. If I have, for example, let's say there's a visual element here that I can switch on and off. Okay, I don't know a good example right now, but there are many examples. Let's say what I want to be able to just right-click there, or whatever the metaphor would be, and then I want to be able to go to the settings that pertain to that particular thing. Straight there. This will then take me to the central configuration dialog, navigated already to that place, or filtered down to all the things spread all over the entire preferences system, because you know that when you two things at the same time. Man, I wish I was two people, at least. And I wish I were. I know, that's grammatically incorrect. And it needs to be I wish I were. See, we have... now I lost track, of course. I keep hopping the topics too much. Setting, location, place. Yeah, when you design a directory tree for your system, then from one perspective, it is right. It will be working. That will be the perspective from which you have designed it. But sometimes you will have different intentions in mind. Sometimes, for example, you're looking just for all images or stuff like that. When normally it doesn't make sense to spread it out like that. Normally it makes more sense to have project-like concepts. You know, this is my project, and this is all the parts that belong to it. This is the raw design images that I put in there. These are the texts that I've used to draft it. And then you will run into another snag. What if you have, for example, a highly technology-oriented subtree, like I have on my computers? One, for example, called programming, and then the subtree being Java. Because there are some things in there that are very Java-oriented, and I want to hop projects from A to B to Z because they belong together so often and so forth, and there's a library project and so forth. That makes sense to put it in a place. But what if you have also a desktop publishing and such areas, or maybe that's not a good example because images are images, different such subtrees. But when you have a project folder, then it would make sense to pull together all the things that are related to the project, which is then different trees. So as I'm saying that, I'm demonstrating that this is a tricky thing. Therefore, you should definitely use an application like Void Tools, free software, everything that you should definitely install in your computers and use, because I have been doing that for a long time and I can only swear to it and mention it as often as I can. You should really know that this is a possibility that you could live in. That you can just express your will and the machine will do your bidding. As in, I hit a hotkey, I see all my 3 million, it's about 3 million files and folders, I type something which instantly, without delay, filters that down to anything that fits, and then I can browse through that, see the newest ones at the top if I so wish as a default setting. I can all configure that all and so forth. I always find my stuff instantly, even if it's old as fuck, if I have actually tried to name it correctly. And so if you have such a project situation where you would have to pull together things that can't be pulled together, what you could do is you could create dummy files, 0-byte files. So just a new text file with right mouse button, and those are 0-byte files then, and you just rename that with some kind of tag scheme that you come up with yourself. And then you copy that to the various parts on your hard disk that pertain to that project, and so you will have your project all in one place. If you use a super awesome application like Everything, which makes you just more capable, which adds new paradigms to how you use your files and how you navigate your files. I am rarely clicking through, C:, and then the subfolder programs. I rarely do that. I always just hit my hotkey for everything, and then just type a few characters, and then I'm in the place. That's how I do it. So since thy will be done is kind of the reality we want to live in, that's what mankind has been pursuing from the start, and we can see that manifested these days as fuck, and it will of course keep increasing. That is the natural thing to do, and you should do it. If you're not doing it, if you're not following this advice, if you have not done it anyway, then sorry, you are missing out. And I can only keep repeating, try the software Everything. You will find your life changed if you have used it for longer and have adapted your workflow. It will improve you. It will accelerate your PC work to at least shorten it to 97% or so or less, or quicker even. And it's not just the time that you save, it's also the overhead. Because see, when you do a thing and then suddenly you realize, shit, I have to do that other thing too, so I can keep going here, then you will be pulled off track. And one of the things that makes you veer off track and thus lose your momentum and will be in the way and will just burden your emotion and will be a pain in your soul, and that's not something that you know, even though you might not describe it as such, but you know what I'm talking about. If you just have a hotkey and you type a few characters and you immediately get to the file, then you skip this whole navigating clickety-clickety-click thing. That is one of those painful factors. And this factor that you have to find a file is a factor that you have many times a day, particularly at work. In other words, if you're using Everything, you're cutting out that pain and making your overall I want to achieve something flow much more momentous, or you have more momentum. It will just keep going. It will be less painful. Do it. Try that, please. So, when we have these configurations, it might be that the things pertaining to the object on screen that are just right-click to have its settings are actually in multiple locations in that overall settings compendium, because this is the directory problem. There are multiple possible perspectives. You could design your directory tree like this or like that. And so when I right-click on the thing and say give me the settings, it should show me that compendium and then filter down to that particular stuff. Or maybe then I can click a button and kill that filter, so it would show me everything again, but still that stuff highlighted. And then I click another button, which will then, or the same button again, who knows, which will then even kill the highlighting, so I'm back in the normal preferences. So the invention here, the idea that I think we should adopt and make a standard in the future is to be able to go to the setting of a thing directly, by association, because ultimately we are a thy will be done species. We are minds in the cosmos. We want to get shit done. We are evolving further and further as a society into a thy will be done reality. We are using thy will be done machines, the computers, and we will hopefully also adopt a thy will be done relationship emotionally and otherwise towards each other, which is the ultimate form of the golden rule. You know, that's thy will be done. Mutual submission and a balance. But also we have these thy will be done machines, which is in the future robots with what we already have today, the AIs. So when you think that behavior of the thing should be different, then you right click on it, and not only will that allow you to immediately change that, so thy will be done, but also this will tell you whether there is even a setting for that thing without having you search for a long time. So is that a good idea? Yes. And that's again an example for you have to have the idea. The machines, the typing, all that stuff, that is overhead. You want to get to a place. You have to... Mankind has to evolve. Everybody, you have to evolve. You have to change what you are into something that is more focused on purity of will and purity of truth processing and of taking a step back, abstracting, seeing the matter, becoming, a more advanced mind, which will then allow you to interact with that future, to utilize it more, instead of being pushed aside or being even stomped into the ground by it. So, programmer Lila, 34, freeing her to design innovative apps. IoT-driven servers auto-optimize her work. IoT-driven servers? That sounded like complete buzzword bingo to me, and so I called the AI out on that later. Self-driven taxis let her code from anywhere. Yeah, that's another thing of autonomous driving. I don't know if we will have actually go to work so much like we do these days, or we'll work from home. I mean, you could have, for example, there could be basically... Well, there's one thing that I envision our future is that at some point we will have... maybe centuries in the future, we'll have, for example, an apartment where one entire wall is a 3D screen that will react to wherever you are in the room. So whatever is shown on the other side will then see as if it's just a continuation of that room, which means that we might be actually living in part, some people will have larger apartments, some people will have smaller apartments. I think the future design of society will be kind of a bit gamified. Currently already we have this thing where you have actually done the thing, you have leveled up, you have the access card, now you have your driver's license. And that is a thing that we could, put in a kind of an emotional gaming context. I think it's a nice thing to have kind of a perk tree kind of thing. Why should we not have real life be a bit, at least here and there, something like an actual perk tree, and you can see here I have my driver's license, and here I'm beginning to learn Spanish, and so forth. This would also motivate you to level up more. It will also weigh your options, and it will also give you an overview of all the things that you can do. It will give you a map of where you are in reality as a person, and so forth. Isn't that a great idea? Yes, I have more of those. Where was I? Self-driving taxis. This screen kind of thing, that basically, when you have a bigger apartment, that will be you have leveled up. But there should be a minimum level that we will all have by the abundance of goods that we would have, thanks to, for example, robotics coming in and AI doing lots of things for us in the future. Here's the thing. Why do we even have jobs? We have jobs not just to be occupied and such. That's one of the things I talked about in one of the previous episodes, where reality, particularly a job, is kind of... You're in touch with the high-frequency cause and effect flow of reality, which charges you as an accumulator, which is what you are. We are all slowly inert drifts of identity. We don't have a nailed-down absolute identity. Maybe in some regards, sexuality or, genetically, but... when it comes to our otherwise identity, it's slowly inertly drifting. We're not nailed down objective. And this means that when it comes to staying fresh in the mind, when you go into your old age, basically, when you no longer have to work, I don't know the actual terminology, sorry, then you might actually deteriorate because you're no longer being charged as an accumulator by this high frequency flow that the high impact cause and effect flow, the to be or not to be flow of work life, which might then let you descend into some kind of dark lethargy, or just not be as bright as you were in your holidays, on the weekends, when you kept being sparked by your work life. And that's something I talked about there too. And how that works, actually, in great detail. Where was I? Freeing to design virtual offices. Yeah, the thing with the abundant goods. Why do we go to work? That is one reason that I just laid out, but I think in the future we will inevitably have to be more advanced minds. That's something I also talk about later with the AI here in this thing, because, I mean, what will a new human do in this society where you have to be kind of highly abstract in your thinking and actions right from the start? Because your job will not be carry a thing from A to B, but your job will be a team leader. You basically start as a team leader in the future, and the team will be AI and robotics and robots. Yes, that's how you have to think of this. And this is already the case. I mean, when I programmed something on Friday by telling the AI do it for me, I had someone do the work for me. That's what that is. I mean, you could say arguably that a very capable tool like Photoshop and such is kind of that, but I don't know. There's I think a what's the word? Significant a categoric difference between these two examples, I think. I mean, this thing is particularly intelligent. You can say, hey, you didn't do the work correctly, do it differently, and in the future you should do this and this. That is more dealing with a worker. Okay, you could also configure your desktop publishing application. Yeah, but you know, it's still very different. Also, I mean, you're using the desktop publishing application yourself, but you can have an AI worker do the work while you do other stuff, which is also how I've done it. When I do some research, when I just say, hey, look up on the web pages and give me some very deep answers, which is what I did, for example, to get this Hardspace Shipbreaker thing keep running in the background because I wasn't satisfied with the standard answer. Anyway, I use it regularly. That'll just say your standard answer isn't good enough. Do a deep research, find everything that you can find, and then give me your best answer. That takes a few minutes. Then I always alt tab do different things. That is you being an employee. That is you being a team leader. So in the future, people will be tossed into that on a very high level already, and so that will be an interesting problem that people will have to deal with. So. Okay, why do we go to work? Another reason is, of course, so that we have money. But that's not all of it. That's not all there is to it. That's just your perspective. We go to work so that the work that we do is being done. Why does the work need to be done? Because the company requires it. And why does the company then have to exist? I mean, the company is then technically also kind of like an employee who's working in the company that's called reality. So why is that employee going to work? So that's a way to look at it, isn't it? I mean, it's fun to think about things like these, like this. So the company is kind of an employee working in reality. Why is the employee doing that? Because maybe someone had a nice idea, for example, OpenAI, when they came up with the more complex artificial neural networks, if they were indeed those who did it, who got us into this new age. I'm not sure if that's so. Or because your father did it and you're just continuing the tradition, because it's something that you're capable of doing, like, for example, carpentry, and so forth. There are multiple reasons, but one of the key reasons, again, is so that the work is being done. Someone needs a plumber, and someone needs the food that the farmer creates for us. And so ultimately it is about the needs that we have. We have the objective reality needs, as in food. I mean, anyone who has been hungering for a week knows, yeah, that's a thing, and there are many such people on this planet. I want to keep calling that into mind, because hunger is when the molecules are screaming at your mind, which is helpless because there's just no food. Eat something, with pain. That's your entire biology, heartlessly, because we emerged in evolution in the nuclear soup as in the primordial soup as single-celled organisms, basically, whose first operation already was to catalyze drifting useful molecular structures for its own existence. As in other words, it was eating. So that's one of the most foundational things that we have, and so is baked into every layer, so to speak, of the infrastructure of our biological existence. And so when that is not fulfilled, then it's one of the most fundamental things of you that is screaming on all levels of your being, change the circumstances, man. Hunger is not a joke. Anyway, the age of abundance that we will be entering by having robotics and AI will probably also feed back to that, so there's hope. Anyway, So that's one of the reasons that we go to work, or that a company exists and goes to work, is that we need these objective needs fulfilled. We need food, we need housing. For that we need materials, we need to mine stuff, we need to gather energy, we need to transport that, we need to have the machinery that allows us to transport that, we need to have the machinery that allows us to create the machinery that allows us to transport that. In other words, we need to create the machines that allows us to create factory machines. The factory machines allow us to create cars and so forth. All of that is a one big weave, and that is why we are doing all these things, and that's why we have jobs. And we have to look at that from this scale perspective. We have to have we have to basically see the forest instead of the trees. That's something I keep doing here, right? I'm trying to keep showing you forests instead of, stumbling around in between trees. And so from that perspective, what can AI and robotics do for us? Well, the objective need of farming can probably mostly be replaced by robotics and AI. The objective need of transportation also. The objective need of mining, where people are in the deepest mines, and I mean, that's kind of like one of the first things that should ever be replaced. The people down there, they're risking their life their whole fucking time. And that is also not an easy death to have, oftentimes, if things go wrong. Those people are heroes. And if you rewind by 100 years, I have seen some photos where people in very, very narrow, the ceiling was basically like less than a meter from the ground, crawling around in there, trying to mine the coal, getting the things that were getting the industrial age going, trying to heat our homes and all of that. These people are the giants, the heroes, the Jesuses, basically, on which today's society rests, on which we have grown. And that's something we should never forget. And also we should not forget that today we still have people like that. Maybe even on that scale sometimes. I mean, there are people, for example, who have to clean industrial ovens from the inside, which means they have to go inside. And you might imagine, well, that doesn't sound like a good thing. And yes, there are news articles that relay that sometimes that's not a good thing. I will not say any more. So that we are living in a world that has all kinds of things: good, bad, evil, sadistic, heavenly, orgasmic. We have all the aspects are here, and you should try to have an as wide-angle view of that whole thing as possible, so that you know the most important thing in the world that can ever be from your perspective, which is you. Because you know yourself best if you know where you are. Because ultimately you're just neutral consciousness in a space-time situation. And so what you need to know is your identity. And what is that? Reality, of course. Your inner and outer reality. And then you need to interact with it. And for that you need to know it. The apartment with the big screens, I imagine that in a few hundred years maybe, everybody who's born, who will grow up, will eventually be able to live alone in their own apartment with the right temperature and as many showers as you want, basically, and also a steady supply of food. Though the food will not be luxurious, the apartment will be small, but it will not necessarily feel small, because you have this 3D wall which can make it seem as if there's a window to a large garden that is your garden. Or it will be able to open, actually, and that's the interesting part, one of the many interesting parts, will open to another apartment. So you will just have two apartments fused into one. So you can, for example, sit in front of someone you like, and you can basically, for example, masturbate in front of each other, or something like it. I mean, when I'm saying things like this might feel a bit off-putting, but it shouldn't. That is just part of the wide-angle view of the existence that we live, of what we are. It should be a completely normal thing. I mean, sex is one of the most normal things ever. It's just so very impactful, and also slightly, I don't know, dirty, sticky or whatever. And also, the impactfulness means that many things are being tied together. How we interact in society, how we, for example, pursue the prey, to use some colorful language. And that means that as a strong driver that it is, at least now still, I think future society will also be different and more cleaned up, and therefore I think that sexuality will be more of an everyday thing than currently is just kind of in a corner all the time. So I think that, for example, these cyberpunk 2077 perspective, where everybody's wearing latex and so forth, might not actually be so far off the mark. I don't know that. It's just one of the many hypothetical futures I see. But I'm saying that it is so impactful and such a strong pull factor that with a non-cleaned up society that as we're still living in, it's no wonder that it's kind of pushed to the side, not an everyday thing. But it shouldn't mean that we shouldn't talk about it every once in a while. And when I just mentioned this, two people seeing each other and then utilizing their apartment 3D connectedness situation in such a way, why should they not be mentioned? I mean, isn't that a cool thing? Even something to look forward to? And well, the omnipresence of 3D augmented reality glasses, I mean, do you have to live alone in your apartment even though you do? With an AI? When we can live with whomever we want, in whatever way we please? See that future that we're heading towards? When I say that the universe is heaven in the making, I mean the holy heaven. That we live together as actually understanding that everybody, even yourself, is the Lord the Creator himself. Not a metaphor, the real thing, yes, true. However, the things I'm currently describing are only going into a very, well, technology, positive, blissful, interesting, cool future. But I'm pretty sure that that is not all it will be. Because if you continue that trajectory, in your imagination you will probably at some point just hit a wall where you can no longer imagine something better. But I assure you, at least that's my deep conviction, that the future will be infinitely good because it is infinitely long and will also steadily continue to improve. And eventually you will even live forever. But okay, let's go back on topic. So this thing with the 3D walls, I don't know how I got there. So yeah, this thing with actually work. See, if in the future we will have the capacity to work from home, which we currently have already, but that's kind of sometimes not a good thing. Maybe you need to talk to a teammate. But once we have these apartments with those screens, we can just be in the office during the office hours, because we will all be together in a virtual space via these 3D walls, beyond which we see the actual person, and then we have an interesting hacking opportunity, basically, where you could basically hack that overall thing that maybe you're currently, I don't know, watching a film, but your AI is pretending as if you're doing work in front of that 3D screen. So yeah, it's a knife. It can be used for killing, but it can also be used for slicing bread. We will always have to keep our balance. We have to always have to try the actual path of find the path of the golden spiral into the infinite and actually holy and heavenly future that we're drifting towards, slowly and inevitably, I might add. Nuclear war? Asteroids smashing us? Seriously? Do you not believe that you have free will? You do, right? And when you really look at it, do you not realize that free will is holy? You do. Then you know what you are. And then you know your future. Maybe not your personal future, because who knows how far that is still away, this influx of possibility space, that we will even have the ability to not die and to not grow old, basically. But it will happen. It will. Okay, back on topic. Self-driving taxis let her code from anywhere. Virtual offices connect her globally. But AI's pace demands constant upskilling. Stagnation isn't an option. That's what I also alluded to already, that when we start in life, we will have to basically be abstract right away, instead of just carrying boxes from A to B. This is your career as a programmer. Embrace AI tools or be outpaced. And that's already the case. I mean, I'm not losing my job if I don't use AI. That's not where we are. But you should already, don't be in that place where you are threatened by that. Always steadily grow with it. And why wouldn't you? Why would you waste days on doing something when you can do it in a few minutes? I know that the craft, the fetish basically of doing it, of programming it line by line, of having it exactly your way, that's there. That's something I also prefer. And I review the code that the AI has written and change it often. But in principle, that is something you should be willing to leave behind. Because, well, it is possibly, you can reach to that place with your outstretched arms, metaphorically, in the upcoming future. But I think you will have to keep stretching your arms further and further beyond reason. And that is a thing I think you should assume is possibly the future. And that should be, and let's go meta again, take a step, go a level higher, that should be something you in general should be willing to live with, non-attachment, that the world that will be keep evolving faster and faster, and hasn't it already gotten faster? Compared to 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, 1,000 years ago? Yes. It will keep accelerating. You might say, okay, at some point it will be too fast. Will it? Does it feel fast for you today or too fast? See, there's this scene in the film Contact, which you all have seen, I hope. Otherwise, please watch it. It's a great film. Really, really, really good. Not without objections, not without some without some cringiness, maybe, but it is really good. It's unique in in what it is, and it's also very well done too. Anyway, and there's a scene where someone is bound to a chair, and the chair has a purpose, and that's why the person is bound to the chair. It's a safety belt kind of situation. But the chair is very shaky, and at some point, a thing has actually loosened from that chair because it is so shaky, and it's levitating away weightlessly. And the person on the chair realizes that, and then realizes, I have to detach myself from this chair. And then the person levitates next, like the object, freely, without burden, and is just seeing that chair shaking until it eventually breaks off. And that is, of course, a metaphor for how you should navigate life. Should you watch the news, these biased, lopsided, left extreme, which could also be right extreme, but currently it's, these biased, corporation-driven and financial interest-driven, and we cannot contradict the strong position that we took 2 years ago because it would make us look stupid, outlets which have to talk to you 24/7 without being interesting, as opposed to me, for example, which just, you should be able to find your path through life. Is it really necessary to watch the news all the time? Can't you just live without that? Isn't it more meaningful to, for example, use YouTube and social media for news? Because then you can pinpoint what you are interested in, and also stuff will be delivered to you in an interest-based, in a passion-based effort, and not just because, well, 24/7 and there is advertisement, so I have to deliver content kind of way. See, that's how you have to think about it. You are possibly still strapped to such a chair, and you see me levitating freely, not an object, but in that scene that I quoted, if there would be another person, then maybe the first person would have seen the second one levitating freely and would have taken that as an example. Levitate freely. Why should you bind yourself to anything? Do the necessary thing, don't do the unnecessary thing. Do what you feel is right. Observe your emotion more clearly, which will also, of course, clarify some things about yourself that you're not so pleasant with, some bad things that you have done and so forth. So you will have to face your demons. But making the circle that you are more and more round, and by that, attaining the ability to even more clearly see how unround you still are, and making it even more flat and more round, this circle. That should be your path, and you should strive for that more pinpointedly these years, as we are heading towards an age where you will be asked what it is that you want. At the core of yourself, you are living will. You have to be more in line with your core, instead of being the distorted person that you possibly are right now, possibly strapped to a chair when you don't need to. You should levitate freely if possible. Okay, next one. Though I need to take a short break. So next then. Warehouse worker, Jamal, 30. Jamal oversees... Yeah, I'm still using this $10 microphone that I've clamped to my head with the headphones that are on my head. Hey, why spend money? Anyway, yes, I want to get a better one, and I mean, if I can make this one sound as good, then I guess a better one, probably, but I haven't yet made my mind up which one I want to use or what style and so forth. So, warehouse worker, Jamal, 30. Jamal oversees robots stacking crates in an AI-run warehouse. His augmented reality glasses highlight tasks, which cuts errors. Self-driving trucks streamline logistics. Internet of Things sensors predict inventory needs. His role shifts to tech maintenance as manual jobs dwindle. Upskilling is his lifeline. This is your workplace. Learn tech or risk obsolescence. We have to remember I gave this thing a tone at the beginning to show the urgency, the importance, and that's what's showing here too. Not that this is untrue, what's written here, but there's certainly probably a tonal tendency. That's why that's being repeated here all the time. Stay-at-home parent, Sophia, 43. Sophia's IoT home, smart fridges, artificial intelligence ovens, runs itself. Augmented reality glasses overlay schedules, virtual meetups, and AI-edited side hustles like vlogging, video blogging. Like blah blah on a video. Or like, oh, that's what I'm doing. No, almost. Self-driving deliveries save time. But she must navigate intrusive augmented reality ads and tech overload. Why did they not mention that over here in the other parts? Possibly because at work that's not something that would happen. And also maybe this is just an opportunity to also talk about these aspects of potential AR future. By the way, if basically augmented reality is almost our future, I mean, I don't want to say this is our future, I want to say this will probably be a ginormous part of our future. If that is indeed so, what will happen to the advertisement industry? I mean, on the one hand, it might be that they no longer build some big posters outside because it can just all be virtual. Why put in the effort? Why waste the environment? And there's even a film out there whose name slipped me, with Clive Owen, I believe. You can look that up, Clive Owen, IMDb. Then you find, oh, I can fucking do that myself. Okay, Clive Owen, IMDb. Let's just search for that film for you, where they have this future where everybody has basically augmented reality eyes directly. I'm not so fond of the surgery aspects of that, so that's not the future I would like to predict or look forward to. And in that world, there are no advertisements. It's just right in the eye, I think. It is the outside world. It looks completely untainted by all the technology that's going on because it's just in your eye. Basically, all the text is just moved into your head, so to speak. So, what's the name of the game? Gemini Man? Is that the one? 2019? I don't think so. That would be fun. What? Oh, he is in that too, in the Will Smith film. Yeah, sure, of course. Oh yeah, of course, I found it. Anon. A-N-O-N, as in anonymous. Anon. In a world without anonymity or crime, a detective meets a woman who threatens their security. Yeah, that's the one. And it's certainly worth a watch. I mean, I'm not sure if it's really, really good, but as a science fiction film, it is well done and shows us something we haven't seen before. That's why I'm even mentioning it now. Now, stay-at-home parent. This is your life. Master these tools or drown in complexity. Okay. Let's move on. Why augmented reality glasses matter. By 2035, such glasses, sleek, all-day wearables, replace phones. They blend artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and robotics into your vision. I mean, imagine you're looking around in your home and you're switching to craftsman mode. Then you can see where behind the walls the electric and the piping and so forth is. Or you just look around in your apartment with Wi-Fi scan mode or whatever, and then you see the strength of Wi-Fi fields. That's something we can actually do. I have used for a while ago, for a short time. I was really interested. An augmented reality app on my Android smartphone that would measure Wi-Fi strengths and would then show beacons in the 3D world as I was waving around my phone as to the measurement strength and that place where I had been already. That's a cool thing. And in the future, well, see, and that would, I mean, isn't that awesome? See, one thing that I did about a month ago, I bought for actually 200 or so euros, which is quite something for just an experiment, something I always wanted to do. I wanted to see infrared. And now I have a camera module that I can just plug into my Samsung Galaxy Note 8, so it's even compatible with that old shit phone. That will allow me just to see heat. I can define the colors, I can select from lots of palettes that already exist, I can have various modes there, it's very cool. I was, for example, at some point when I experimented with this thing, I was walking around when the lights were out, and And then at some point I was waking up again to the fact the lights are out, man. You're only seeing the heat and navigating the 3D environment. The stairs down are out there in the stairwell and out there on the street, basically next to the house, just by heat and not by light. That's fun. And then I was also in the basement where there are a few bicycles and there was absolutely no visible light. It was absolutely fucking dark. And it was very cold also, pretty cold. And then I was seeing the temperature range that the camera was measuring, which is of course not objective, it's only an attempt. Depends also on the materials, and you can choose those because they have different, I don't know what the term is, but different strengths of radiating the heat. I was seeing a range of like 2 degrees, 2 or 3 degrees over a range of visuals, yet I could still make out all the bicycles that were standing in there. That's fascinating, man. And I believe that this will also be part of the augmented reality abilities that we will have in the future. I know it's kind of a problem because it can basically visualize a person's shape despite their clothes, which can be a sexual thing. And that's not why I got the fucking camera, and I also made a point out of never pointing it at a person. Apart from myself, for example. But because if I do that, I know the will of the other person is violated. The person doesn't know it, but the will is violated, and so I don't do it. That's how I operate, and that's the future that we all have to adapt to accordingly. Otherwise, we cannot properly coexist. Anyway, so I was experimenting with that, and that's, I mean, if we in the future have a more cleaned up mind, more cleaned up societal flow, and proper behavior, then certainly sex can play a larger role in everyday life, or can be closer to it. And then I think such a infrared view kind of thing would just be, oh, here you're in infrared mode, okay. You know, instead of that being, oh, scandalous, you're abusing me, you know, this will all change. So, into your vision, navigation, work, play. Wealthier regions adapt fastest, others lag due to costs. This isn't optional technology, it's how you'll interact with reality. This is a good statement to make. This is how you'll interact with reality, because it means, I mean, these days we have kind of a smartphone obligation. I'm not saying I like it, because these things are still basically Stone Age when it comes to their usability, to their reliability, and so forth. Okay, I'm talking about basically my phone here, but I'm also not blind to the other ones out there. And I mean also, when I'm using games, when I'm using applications, when I'm using web apps, then I'm using technology of today and not my like 8, 10, I don't know how old smartphone. In other words, I have a compass, a feel for how retarded, how disabled, how stupid mankind still is when it comes to creating proper thy will be done machinery interfaces. Let's see also my complaint about not being able to change a setting by just clicking on a thing that I want to change, even though that is so obvious. What I said in the previous video about Windows Explorer being so retarded in the standard configuration. About the properties windows of the properties windows of the system Windows being so fucking retarded. You can still not change their size. Are you kidding me? Why can't I change the size? The text is always wider than the window. It's always tedious to work with, and so forth. I mean, that's on every front. And many games still underestimate the importance of a high potential field of view, even though they have 3D first-person interfaces. I mean, everybody, wake up to the following fact. If you're playing a 3D first-person game, which I'm looking forward to do, since, like I said, today I purchased and already installed the game Abiotic Factor, so I'm looking forward to playing that. Maybe on video, who knows, my first experiences, which is always a bit sucky, but, you know, that's me. When the 3D first-person interface, what is its purpose? Its purpose is to give you an immersive, meaning you feel it as you're really there. You suspend your disbelief more, even on an emotional level, and not just on some kind of story understanding level. That you're really in there. And what does that mean? That means the more of your natural 3D first-person, the apartment that you sit in, environment is actually de facto replaced by this flat screen, or whatever, it can be actual 3D, I don't care, by this 3D first-person view that you have into that virtual world. the more correctly you are actually using that interface. That is why I have a 50-inch TV that is sitting in a distance from me that I just touched it. I just stretched out my arm and touched it with a stretched out finger. That's where it's standing. And that's how I also use my computer. And I have gotten used to it. And at work I have two smaller screens that are next to each other, and I would like to have rather a big screen because I think that's more meaningful. Because, I mean, if you have ever used two screens and have alt-tabbed between two applications, you know what I'm talking about. You will accidentally alt-tab between the application in front of you on the first screen, and then not alt-tab to the other application that's in the back of it, but to one that is on the other screen. Just as an example. And then you have to arrange things, so you have to... the extra... I don't want that. Just give me a 4K motherfucking big screen. Anyway, so... the field of view maximum settings in many games for the longest time was way too low, and I fucking curse those developers for being so stupid, for putting in millions of man hours, person hours, and then locking it away behind a retarded interface. That's just fucking shit, man. We could have such great things, but one guy made a wrong decision and then he even decided you cannot change that with a console hack or with a configuration change. No, we even nailed that down with some hard checks because blah 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 blah. I know that there are some reasons there and there's some development overhead, but in principle you just have to crank up the variable so we can have wider field of views. But that's not the question. The question is, this is the interface for which you're developing. This is the medium for which you're developing, and you should be capable of doing so. And the people are so consuming that we should also be adult enough, and most of you are not, to understand that you should try to have a big fucking screen. And when I'm talking about that, when I'm saying that, I of course mean an effective screen size, not buy a big screen and have it far away. You could also have a small screen and be very close to it, though that's much eye strain and possibly damaging, who knows. And then you have to appropriately set a wide field of view. Now, people say, yeah, if the field of view is very high, that's bad. Then you get a fisheye. These people don't know what they're talking about, yet they dare to speak to the world, instructing others, speaking on a high flow level, basically spreading wisdom, except it's the opposite. That is damaging. That should not be. The truth is, it is only fisheye if the field of view is too high for your effective screen size. That is all. And is only telescopic if the field of view setting is too low for your effective screen size. That is all. So how do you determine the correct field of view setting? Well, what I do is I stand in a place and I rotate the mouse on the desktop. I draw circles with it, so that my view on screen draws a circle basically, and then I see do I feel as if that's does it feel like a sphere somehow? Then it is possibly too high, the setting. But ultimately, I decided by feeling, do I want to see more? And that's how I do it then. There's an objective field of view, actually. There is one. Listen up. Let's say you have a screen that you carry in front of you, and that is showing your actual apartment, but not with a camera view, but instead you have inputted your entire apartment, or wherever you're walking, as a 3D model. So you're showing the aligned 3D model dynamically, exactly the part that you're currently carrying, where you're carrying the screen, where you're walking, how you're waving this, and so forth. As if you're just looking through it into reality, except that's a rendering. What's around it, that's reality. Now, if you pull that closer, what do you have to do? You have to increase the field of view setting so that that more is being shown on the screen. When you push it further away, or when you shrink the screen, effective screen size. That's the goal here. That's the point here. Then you have to decrease the field of view. And this not just shows you what the relationship is, but also what the objective setting is, because it's related to our over millions of years evolved biology and eyes and brain. Yeah. And so that's one angle from which you can say mankind is retarded when it comes to designing user interfaces. Because this very obvious and clear and bindingly, screamingly fucking glowing hot iron logic I just relayed is not doubted, I guess, but it's just, not seen, not lived. It should be. Objectively, period, end of story. And when we look at volume sliders, well, both YouTube fucks it up, Steam fucks it up, almost every game fucks it up, where the upper regions of the slider almost do nothing and the lower regions accelerate too quickly into silence. Of course, you have to raise the power of the volume slider, given that it's a value from 0 to 1, to the power of 2.7, which is Euler's number. And then you can cast the resulting number at the actual current waveform that you want to output. And this raised to the power of is not even calculation overhead, since that only has to be made one time when you change the slider. So it's the same overhead as it was before. It's just that developers are retarded. Humans are stupid. That's really, you know, we should accept that we are all, I mean, I'm probably also stupid, but I'm probably less stupid because I've reflected on my shortcomings and tried to improve myself as hard as I could for decades, and I've succeeded. Because when, I mean, I'm not saying I'm there yet, I'm done, but I'm saying, if you put your mind to do a thing and you do that thing, then guess what? If you do it for long enough and for hard enough, you will succeed. That's normally how it is. And so if you do this thing, you succeed at this thing. And so I look down on that, and so I cannot trust really that mankind is good enough to at you know, implementing good interfaces. For example, when it comes to smartphones these days, then I can easily say, okay, that is ambiguous, and here you have to long press, how is that expressed, and here you have the same symbol, even though it's doing a different thing, and here you have to slide, and there's too much virtuality here, and there's no map, basically, that you can just invoke, which shows you the current user interface reality of the entire smartphone at once, and so forth. All of that doesn't exist, man. Why? Why do we not have a button or keyword where we can switch to the BIOS directly to configure it while we're still running? Why do we not have a button or keyword where we can switch to configuring you know, we have the system, the machine settings, we have the operating system settings, and we have the settings of the current application. Why are those not just three hard keys that we have on our keyboard? Maybe the BIOS thing is taking it a bit far, could be done with control system switch or whatever, but certainly a button that is meant to get you to the preferences of the current application, maybe even a web page that is currently focused. Why not? Isn't that something that we often need? Why we don't have it? We are asleep at the wheel, or you are, who knows? So let's move on. The stakes. AI and automation amplify efficiency, but disrupt jobs and privacy. It doesn't mean it ends jobs, but my job, for example, is disrupted in that I should adapt, which I'm willingly doing because I'm, you know, such a technical guy, tech-oriented, and I love to play with this new technology, obviously. But you have to adapt, disrupt jobs. And some jobs will actually fall away, but new jobs will open up, so it disrupts jobs. And privacy. You'll need to adapt, learn, experiment, engage. By 2030, 2040, this tech isn't out there. It's your alarm clock, your commute, your groceries. Start exploring AI now. Your future isn't watching, it's acting. Want to dive deeper into one role or to tweak the focus? I wish this would have been written in a different color. Because this is, you know, this is now the AI stepping out of this entire thing it just did, and is basically talking meta. It's talking on a different hierarchy level of this entire communication. Alright, what did I say then? Feedback on your great response. At some point it said, this isn't sci-fi or someone else's story, it's your reality unfolding. AI, robotics, IoT, self-driving vehicles and so forth. And there I said, not the first time in this conversation that I got the feeling that you just wanted to get this aspect of my prompt out of the way early, sacrificing what could have been somewhat story or argument-like flow for obnoxious in-your-faceness. And this is not a word, but this what I wrote here transports the meaning, and therefore, for making clear what the fuck you want to an AI is possibly even better than an existing word I could have placed here. You know, always communicate effectively and truthfully when you're, you know, trying to, you know. So, programmer Lila. Lila codes with a 3D AR workspace, her glasses projecting holographic IDEs. Would programming even still show us the actual code? Wouldn't it rather be graphical building blocks whose hidden inside code we only review if the mandatory automatic testing shows it misbehaving? And generally, what would those 3D AR IDEs look like? Sounds a bit like a solution looking for a problem in this case. You know, that's, you know, didn't want to be too celebratory of some new technology. I wanted to be critical. Like, does it have to be a 3D AR thing? How is that productive when you're trying to create an IDE? But of course it is. Because look at our screens. Right now we have high resolution. Back then we didn't. So now we can put more things on there. Look at the mouse. Now we can do something that I think many games should do immediately. For example, yeah, I was playing Cyberpunk 2077 a lot in the recent days, and the interface I think is way too complex for its own good, and they could have used with some stationeers-like interface, where you hit a key, use the mouse, click on the thing that you mean, because here you can say, okay, you can see the mouse, but you can see me selecting, at least. This is where the mouse right is. I can see this is currently my will. This is the topic of my intention. And this is already a very strong statement. But the alternative is you have to hit the appropriate hotkeys. And in the case of Cyberpunk, the hotkeys even change. In this context, this one is right. In that context, that one is right. That's annoying, man. But the mouse pointing at a thing, that is always the same thing. So by adding the mouse pointer to the systems that we have here, I mean, at some point computers didn't have that, like 50, 40 years ago. We have added a new dimension of direct connection between us and the machine. And in this way, when we add more dimensions, for example, this is currently a black and white screen. But this here, I said should have been written in a different color. That's a different dimension. We have grayscale here, but then we could also have, for example, saturation or hue. That's a different dimension of color. So whenever we're expanding the potential information space that we're looking at, that we're interacting with, we are necessarily giving us more possibilities. How we then utilize them, however retarded mankind is to actually utilize them, that's a different story. They still have to explore, even though so many things are so very clear. They would just be willing to take a step back and do it properly right away. But if we have a 3D space, where we could, for example, indeed say, well, okay, let me say, I have this reminder program that I made for myself. Then that has been almost defining to parts of my life for years now, and even at the office, and some people are using it too already. And one of the main characteristics of this reminder program is as follows. I have an infinite plane that I can just move around and zoom freely in, and even proper zoom, so where the mouse is, there the zoom takes place, the zoom in and zoom out. That's the way it should be. And then I can click in a place and it will create a dot, a square. And then I can write a text that will then be shown at the dot. For example, washing machine, or remember the washing machine, or longer text even, which is like 2 or 3 sentences long, though I try to avoid these. And then inside of this dot, I have various options. I can open it up. I have an editor. I have a full description text. I have various reminder concepts behind this, time-based, progress bar-based, and so forth. And I can then move these dots around by dragging, so I can thematically organize them. I can also gather them inside a rectangle that would dynamically adapt to the things that are contained that as I move them around, which will then be a headline and a color shade that is behind all of them. So I have these topics, and that's something I can do there. And of course, every little action I take, moving something around, editing something, will immediately be saved, and will immediately also make backups, which will reach back about 7 years. Now you might think, okay, how many backups are those? 50. Because I came up with, of course, an ingenious solution there, which is that for the first few minutes, the resolution of backups is where, it saves immediately, of course, and it also uses saves. So it first creates a file, and when the file is correctly written, it renames that file, replacing the original. So you cannot lose your data, as opposed to a file that is not completely written, and then you basically have lost data. I mean, any developer these days creating save games or document saves and so forth, not using saves, should actually be barred from programming software for other people. That should be something, that should be a law for that motherfucker. I wonder if that's why Adobe preferences have been lost by their applications for over several decades, which is screamingly unfathomably extreme. I mean, given how complex it is to create the document that is the correct application settings. It's a very complex document that you are creating there. So saves, and I can move these things around. Now imagine you'll be programming in a 3D space. You could say, okay, this subroutine I move over here, and the other ones I also move over here, like a cluster, like they belong together. Of course, that's a bit more complex in programming, because usually things in one text file, in a class, they have some privilege when it comes to interacting with each other, while outside things might not see those, depending on what you have written there. So that's a bit more complex, but I'm just giving you an example. I haven't yet designed a 3D augmented reality IDE yet. I will, certainly. Not one that will then necessarily be made, but I will look at the ones that exist, will have an opinion, and thus implicitly design my own. like all of you should be doing. I mean, we should collaboratively looking at this, and all should have a strong opinion, and we should voice that. I mean, whenever you find a volume slider that is broken, then if your game review says thumbs up, awesome, great, this is good, that is good, and so forth, then you should leave as a footnote always the statement, but the volume sliders are broken, like in almost all other games, the top level does nothing. That we need to get that shit out there. We need to adjust the world. How do we do that? By pushing. How can we push? We are just these small data points, every individual. But by all of us pushing, everybody contribute to this. Anyway, so your first contribution should be you think. So yeah, of course, an augmented reality IDE could be productive, more productive, because you can have new communication and organizational paradigms, navigational paradigms, how you move from A to B to Z. Instead of having a list of documents that are in a simple flat hierarchy. In a simple hierarchy, you know. So, let's continue. Would programming even still show us actual code? Wouldn't it rather be graphical building blocks whose hidden inside code we only review in the mandatory automatic testing if the testing shows misbehaving? And generally, what would those IDEs look like? Sounds a bit like a solution looking for a problem in this case. IoT-driven servers to auto-optimize her work. That totally sounds like buzzword bingo, so please elaborate. Why IoT here? Now, with all that out of the way, but please respond to it. I mean, I'm not sure what out of the way would cause in the AI's thinking, so I'm making sure that it doesn't interpret that to mean this is just me objecting, but move on regardless. I'd like you to react to the entire prompt I had given you, that had caused the response I'm reacting to here, except the person expressing all this is downplaying it all. In other words, I want to give my few viewers, via these two versions of your response, a spectrum instead of possibly pushing them unreasonably. Personally, I think that the urgency is real, so the response I'd now be getting that can not quite be realistic, but we'll see. Feedback response. I hear your concerns about the tone and specific in the previous artifact. In the previous artifact, huh? Let me address them concisely before delivering the revised response. Obnoxious tone. Apologies for the overly forceful opening. Yeah, I aimed to emphasize urgency per your initial prompt, but overcorrected, disrupting the narrative flow. The revised version, oh, there will be a revised version, will weave the "this is your reality" message more organically. Programming and 3D AR IDEs, you're right, by 2035, coding may shift toward graphical modular interfaces, for example drag and drop blocks or visual workflows, with AI handling low-level code. I mean, that's the thing. If these days we can actually develop software by telling the AI what to write, then more and more we will distance ourselves from the actual atoms of the code. We will just deal with the cells that they then create, with the organs that we can build out of them, and with the animals that we then have walking around on the table that we have to tame and make behave. And this means that it could be less text-oriented and could go more into a graphical direction. Not that I'm saying that's good, but certainly more associative, like I'm already doing in my described infinite space, two-dimensional reminder thing. That's certainly good, because if you remember, it was at the right top. Shazam, you find it. If it's just a long list, then that's not so easy. So the more dimensions, basically natural dimensions that you can feel basically in your mind, you add to your information organization, the better you can have a feel of how it is actually organized, instead of it being so detached, just being a list, just being a wall of text or whatever. Programmers might only dive into raw code for debugging or custom tweaks when automated tests flag issues. 3D augmented reality IDEs could visualize system architecture. For example, data flows or microservices as interactive 3D graphs, but might feel gimmicky for text-based coding. They'd likely excel in collaborative debugging or prototyping, projecting shared models. I'll refine this to avoid overhyping. IoT-driven servers. IoT-driven was vague, sounding like buzzword fluff. I meant servers integrated with IoT sensor networks, for example real-time data from devices like smart thermostats or logistic trackers, that autoscale resources or optimize app performance based on usage patterns. For a programmer, this reduces manual server configuration. I'll clarify this in the new response. So a glimpse, this is the same thing again. I'm not going to read the entire thing, just the beginning because it's relevant to the changes. Hey, no big deal, but the world's probably going to look a bit different between two... Okay, that's weird. So is this the... Aha, okay. So what we're seeing here is not the same thing again, but revised according to my critique. What we're seeing here is the new thing where I said be less pushy and then weaving that in there. So yes, we can waste time with the entire thing. I mean, I can. I don't know what you're doing. A glimpse at 2030, 2040, AI and tech in everyday life. Hey, no big deal, but the world's probably going to look a bit different between 2030 and 2040. Artificial intelligence, robotics, self-driving cars, Internet of Things, gadgets, and maybe artificial... What is the Internet of Things? Well, if you have a lamp on your desk that is in a place that is a physical thing, but that is wired with the internet or with your local area network, then that's a device that is of the category Internet of Things. It's a thing that is part of the net, of some net, that can be controlled, can feed back into it, can give you sensor data and so forth. Internet of Things gadgets and maybe augmented reality, mixed reality glasses instead of phones, they are just creeping into daily routines. It's not like you have to care, but here's what it might mean for a programmer, a warehouse worker, and a stay-at-home parent. Augmented reality glasses, they are likely to catch on, say, 75% change by 2035. It's interesting that it's giving such a high number still. Before we had 80%, now we have 75. I wonder if this is not in reality lower than that. But okay. Since they're getting cheaper, lighter, and tied to fast 6G networks. Just a heads up on what's coming. Programmer Lila, 34. Lila's coding gig is mostly the same, but fancier. She uses augmented reality glasses to fiddle with visual app builders. Think drag and drop blocks, not just typing code. AI auto-writes the boring bits and flags bugs, so she only tweaks code when tests fail. Her servers pull real-time Internet of Things data, like user activity from smart devices, to adjust app performance, saving her some hassle. Self-driving taxis let her work from a park bench. Or actually from the taxi itself, when you don't have to look at the road. It's cool, but she's got to keep learning new tools. So it's cool as in, yeah, it's a cool thing to have, but that's not all it is. She also has to keep learning new tools. No pressure, just how it goes. Warehouse worker Jamal, 30. Jamal's warehouse job is less sweaty now. Robots haul boxes. His augmented reality glasses point out what needs checking. Artificial intelligence predicts stock needs. Stock, not as in stock trading, but as in, how do you have to stock up on stuff. AI predicts stock needs using Internet of Things sensors, and self-driving trucks handle deliveries. He's more of a robot babysitter than a lifter, just like us, like you and I have to become basically the lion tamers. In the information space, for example, you have to be the one who employs AI, works with it, instead of eventually possibly even be replaced by it or pushed to the side, who knows. Jamal is more of a robot babysitter than a lifter, which is chill. He might train to fix technology. Since manual jobs are fading, it's not a huge deal, just a shift to keep up with. So not a work shift, but a change of things to keep up with. Stay-at-home parent Sophia, 43. Sophia's home runs smoother with IoT stuff, like a fridge that pings her of low milk. Her augmented reality glasses show recipes or virtual chats with friends, no phone needed. Artificial intelligence suggests meal plans, and self-driving vans drop off groceries. She's dabbling in AI-edited social media posts for fun. It's handy, but she dodges annoying augmented reality ads. Life's just a bit more connected, that's all. Augmented reality glasses. The new normal? ? Augmented reality glasses might edge out phones by 2035. They are comfortable, project info like maps or notifications right in your view, and work with AI and... Excuse me, did I ask for this stream to not be longer streaming? No longer be streaming. And work with AI in Internet of Things for seamless tasks. Richer countries will jump in first. Others might stick with phones due to price. It's not world-changing, but a slicker way to stay plugged in. Okay, don't agree, it's not world-changing. Far enough into the future, if we'd all be using that, that would be a changed world, no question. You just have to think about it. And this video, even though it's very talky and very long like the others, gives you material that you might not otherwise find, which gives you some ground, some fertile ground on which you then can grow ideas and thoughts and logic regarding a topic that is as relevant as it gets, which is all of reality, all of human reality in the very near future that you will still be alive in, most probably. I mean, if you're not like 99. No big rush. AI, robots, and glasses are making things easier. Work, home, getting around. Some jobs might shift, and you'll probably poke at new tech eventually. It's not like the world flips overnight. If you're curious, play with AI now. But it's fine just to watch it roll in. Want to zoom in one more on these tweaks and so forth. So this is now exhaustive for this topic, I think. What did I do then? Thank you, that is good. Now, I want to shift this entire conversation, but the aspect of future tech, AI, robotics will stay, so you can drop most of the baggage you're stuck with. My question is, will menial work, did I spell that correctly? I think so. Will menial work vanish from the world? And we definitely are entering a world asking for more sophisticated minds. For example, operating on a higher abstraction level instead of the more concrete. So how are new humans, whose minds are of course at first not sophisticated, supposed to enter this world? Will there be a clock ticking up to age 25 for growing up sufficiently, while a more than ever resource-rich world props them up? Will they be taught by individualized interactive AI agents to boost their learning and mental capacities? And if so, could you try to paint a concrete picture of such a scenario? Menial work in educating new minds in 2030-2040. Will menial work vanish? Menial work, repetitive, low-skill tasks like manual sorting, basic cleaning, or simply data entry won't vanish entirely by 2030-40, but it's shrinking fast. AI, robotics, and Internet of Things are automating much of it. Think robotic warehouse stackers, self-driving delivery vans, or AI chatbots handling customer service. But I mean, I actually am at work, me personally, I am tasked at work with trying to figure out an AI agent that we can then use to support our customers. That's a very interesting task. The problem is, I'm tasked with things that are stacking up for at least months, if not years, of work that I could still be busy with, but new shit is always coming in, so I always have to prioritize and things just fall off the table. You might think how can that business be operational in such a scenario? Well, many things are optional, but we need to improve, we need to get better and so forth, and so we have to prioritize. Anyway, by 2035, about 30% of current menial jobs could be automated per labor studies, especially in wealthier nations. However, some tasks, for example, nuanced caregiving or artisanal work, I had to look that up, that is when someone is, for example, a very crafty painter or carpenter or some other tasks, manual tasks where you're very good at, where you're an artisan, advanced craftsperson. Resist automation due to human touch or cost. In poorer regions, low wages keep manual jobs viable. New menial roles like robot maintenance or AR interface testing may emerge. That's something we should talk about for a moment. Currently, I am toying with AIs at work instead of having to do the work myself. I mean, it's half and half, you know? And so that's the kind of way you have to think about that. But well, okay, I'm a bit off topic. I also, well, when I'm dealing with them, I also have to like teach them, you're doing this wrong here, and I want to use this keyword in this way, and you should all make all my variables final if at all possible. Final means it becomes a constant, and I use the final keyword wherever I can. Just okay. A little sidestep here. I think that Java is super awesome, really great. It's a great fucking phenomenon basically in the world because it's multi-layered, it's not just a language. But I think it grew in a wrong way when it comes, for example, to the final keyword. There's a keyword that is called final, with which you turn a variable into a final thing. And you have to give that keyword right away when you create that variable, so that variable will not first be changeable and later not changeable. It's very clear. I mean, Java is generally very clear, very expressive, very, I mean, Okay, some people might say that expressive means you say 3 words and that means 10 things at once and they will then be done. What I mean with expressive is you're expressing your actual, focused, crystal clear truth will, and not just something that the program might then guess. And then Java basically did a big mistake when they introduced the VRA keyword, which allows to create variables, which then which are then context sensitive, or I mean, depending on context, they will then become either a string or an integer or a floating point variable. And I don't like that. I don't want to have to think to know what's written there. I want to see what's written there with comments, but as few as possible, because effectively that also becomes code since it's important to you. That's why you have these comments, so you have to keep them up to snuff, and this means you should have as little as possible. You should rather have complex variable names instead, and method names and such, and class names. But you know, I want the language that's written there to say what it's doing, instead of me first having to decipher, basically uncompress the zip file to know what that means. So I don't like that Java is suddenly going in a direction of arbitrariness like JavaScript has been done. I hate JavaScript. I mean, at least in its pure form. There are certainly frameworks for JavaScript where that is not a problem, I know. And, well, what Java did wrong, I believe, is, well, first of all, I think all variables should be final by default. And if you want that variable to actually be a variable, then you should use the keyword VAR for that, which of course now is occupied with that stupid decision I made. Thank you! Always mankind has to do the opposite of what I decide. Suspicious. Anyway, so that would be... that I think would be better, because that makes, I mean, okay. And another thing, I think that all classes and variables and methods and so forth should by default be private. I mean, there's a keyword that's called private. This means that to access that method, to call it basically, you have to be in the closest possible context to it. You have to be in the same class basically, in the same text file. When you want to call it from the outside, from there it doesn't even exist. And there are other such access scopes, but private is of course the safest one. And so when someone designs some building blocks of code, of which of course all programs consist, then they will try to separate concerns, to make little machines that are separate from each other, that are just interfacing. So you have one thing that works reliably, and then you can move on to the next thing, because this thing is now safe. You don't have to think about it. Don't make spaghetti code where everything reaches into everything. That happens probably at some point anyway, so try to avoid that as hard as you can the whole time. And this means that by default we would certainly build a lot of code where a lot of things will be private. And also, we don't want to accidentally change a variable. And so why the fuck is the default not that everything is private, so that the private keyword doesn't even have to exist? And why the fuck is not everything final by default, so that the final keyword doesn't have to exist? Shakes head. The case of classes, of course, is a bit different. Or maybe methods also, because overriding methods or subclassing classes, overriding classes is something that makes sense, but a lot of sense, and so it should be maybe stay the default. But you see where I'm coming from here, right? Safety, code stability, fewer bugs. That would be achieved if the code, if not accidentally, something can be reached from a place where it should be reachable, or where a variable cannot be changed accidentally. And also, because we are in this situation now where the final keyword exists and the var keyword exists. And there's another thing I object to in this regard. The prescribed way of writing that usually is public static final, for example, for a variable. Public static final is, I believe, the correct keyword order, but you can order them differently. And from the start, when I learned about the final keyword, when I started learning Java, I immediately decided in all my code I will always use the final keyword as often as I can for the purposes I lay out, and also I will write it as the first keyword, because it's important. It's the most important aspect to me, because I need to still learn that. The final keyword is, the final keyword is kind of arbitrary. I could leave that non-final. Maybe I will never accidentally change that variable, but it's good if the variable cannot accidentally be changed, and so it's important to me. And so while the execution does not basically teach me by compilation errors or by crashing or whatever, very obviously that something has been written wrong there, so that I forgot the final keyword. But because that is such a fluffy thing, I decided have that keyword at the beginning, so I don't accidentally forget it. But it goes further. If I say final public static, The final keyword, like I said, is rather fluffy, and I already expressed what it does. And then we have public or private, or maybe another focus, the access scope, as the next keyword. And that is, of course, more important. That defines functionality. I mean, final already does that, but it's kind of arbitrary. I mean, sometimes you might not run into whether it's final, particularly if it's not final. I mean, anything non-final you can use. Okay, there's multi-threading where that plays a big role. I mean, if you do multi-threading, you should try to be as final as you can be, because then you don't run into race conditions. It's such guaranteed. Anyway, so the next keyword is public or private, and that is already a bit more important, a bit more functional related. And then we have static or non-static. And that is the biggest factor when it comes to how it behaves, how it functions. So it's kind of a gradient that fades in. And so the least important things I mention first, so I don't forget them. And also I have this meaningful fading in to the most important thing of all, which is then the keyword that says class, or integer, or string. See, that is all meaningful and good and beautiful design and would improve programming, and I'm sad that this hasn't happened. And it's another example for how I can design better user interfaces than mankind in general has the tendency of doing. So, new menial roles like robot maintenance or AR interface testing may emerge. So, when you're now dealing with AI and are trying to teach it to program the thing for you, now you have to basically learn how to program the AI, how to tell it how to behave, how to write that code for you, to use these expressive command line arguments, to comment all of them, to give you feedback, expressive feedback and so forth. That is then the next task. And that is why I'm saying to you now, try to learn AI, try to interact with them, try, because that is not just blah, I want something, or blah, make an image. It is much more deeper than that. And if you don't do it, except if you watch my videos, then you will not get not an inkling really of how deep that goes. And then therefore of what you have to learn there to be still a meaningful part of that future that's emerging, instead of being pushed aside because the high energy flow will just, not be interested in what you have to say. Interfaces may emerge, but they'll demand basic tech literacy. The trend's clear. Menial work's declining, pushing everyone towards higher skill roles. How will new humans enter a sophisticated world? As artificial intelligence and automation raise the bar, society... I talked about you should really watch the previous video where I even visually explained the concept of the abstraction hierarchy of reality. Low-level things like the placement of grains of sand. Higher-level things like human interactions. Even higher-level things like cosmic infrastructure. That is a hierarchy. And there's of course more to it, it's more of a fade over. And AIs and automation can currently act on a low level. It can automatically scan documents that are handwritten or typed out into a digital form, which until some point a human would have to do. But now that job has been replaced, but it's a very low level job. But this hierarchy goes higher and higher, and so the AIs also keep climbing this hierarchy, and at some point they will be on the hierarchy level that you are currently operating at. Do you not see that? And this means that you too have to be climbing. And you have to always be at least a step ahead with your mental sophistication and abilities, and what your will does, and how you operate reality, how you use it, which button you push, how you use the AI, a step ahead of the AI's level of being able to autonomously act upon the world. It's logical. And was that clear to you until now, without me having said it? If not, then please appreciate the value that I'm giving you here. Not as in, say that I'm good, I want to hear it now. But currently this very long talk thing, I know it's annoying. This format here is pretty hard to digest, I know that. But what am I supposed to do? Of course I could package it in smaller packages with visual style, and then it takes me another month to make one video. But now I can just have an idea, vomit that out in real time, and move on with my life. For example, play that game. And so I'm contributing more, certainly at least conceptually, if people would actually watch and listen to this, than if I would do that in a way that is more easily digestible, would find more viewers and more upvotes. But the value that I'm delivering here is real. That's what I mean. Anyway, raise the bar, society might adapt abstract thinking. Yeah. As AIs and automation raise the bar, society will demand minds adapt at abstract thinking. And it is very abstract thinking if you are realizing that we are living in an abstraction hierarchy. Isn't it? strategizing, synthesizing, or navigating complex systems over concrete task-based skills. So that is something that is happening. New humans, kids born 2025 to 2035. Why is it saying that? Didn't I say 30 to 40? Why is it shifting now? I wonder. Start with unsophisticated minds. So how do they catch up in a resource-rich, tech-heavy world? A clock won't tick to age 25 is interesting. Usually they have this sycophancy thing going on, and so if the AI then just say no, that's not something that will happen, instead it would be different, this means the AI has a good idea. Its logic, its simulation, that gives a stronger statement than the sycophancy effect and my statement in combination would cause its thought direction then to take, you know. A clock won't tick to age 25. Instead, individualized AI agents will accelerate learning. I mean, currently we're going to school. You might not have to do that then. You might be able to stay at home while we are 3D screens still being in a class to have that social interaction. Who knows? Whatever. I don't know. But you're currently getting a knowledge download for a group of people. Well, in this case, it can then be individualized. And currently, I can just fire up an AI and ask, hey, this and this and blah and blah, and I do that all the time. And so I'm learning new things. I mean, maybe you have by now got the impression that I'm overall pretty knowledgeable. My knowledge, it might not be deep, but it's very broad. And how did I do that? By sitting in a classroom and someone talking about all these things? No, because I was interested. And when you're interested in a thing, when you're Googling it, when you're asking an AI, then you're most receptive to it and putting it in your head. And so this interactive AI-driven learning that we might have in the future will accelerate learning a lot. And so that is indeed, yeah, that makes sense. Tailoring education to each child's pace and style. These agents, paired with augmented reality glasses and immersive tech, so that there will be a strong association in the learning instead of just someone doing blah 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 like I'm doing it here, will make education continuous. Imagine I would be a person of the future, which sometimes I might give off the impression I am. With AR glasses and immersive tech, imagine I would have basically all that technology available. Then, as I talk here, an AI companion might be able to create the video that explains the topics I'm talking about to you in a visually expressive, associative, meaningful, and not at all generative AI, stupid, simplified, distorted, whatever kind of way. Meaningful, as if I had designed it thoroughly over a long time. In real time. Do you not think that will be a thing? Oh, you're still not catching up, man. So, well, this is then also a thing that will be in learning. And that will certainly, we will basically be able to download knowledge directly from reality as some kind of hallucination consciousness stream in the future. Almost as if we're plugged into the matrix and getting a direct download to our brain, except less fast. I mean, you have seen these reader apps on the internet where they throw a word at you. It's just shown on screen in the middle, relatively big, and then the next word of the sentence is shown, and the next word, and that is a speed higher than you would normally read the sentence, and you can actually swallow that, drink that up. That is a thing. So yeah, the future will be different, man. We'll make education continuous, adaptive and engaging, reducing the grow up or else pressure. Wealthy societies will prop up kids with access to these tools, but disparities in poorer regions risk a skills gap. So what the dystopian or otherwise science fiction stories and films show us will probably be the case, that there will still be people who do the menial tasks, or some of those, or low-level robot maintenance work, swapping out batteries when the servo is down or something like it. Because in the future, the robots will of course not charge their batteries. It's hilarious that even Star Wars is still showing us that they're sitting there and charging their batteries. Excuse me? Like they're asleep, to give that kind of emotion there. That's stupid. They're more effective if they can just be running all the time. And therefore, the batteries will be charged while they're not using them. Then they swap them out and their battery will be charged, of course, like we're already doing with cars. Wealthy societies and so forth. Let's move on. Concrete scenario, AI agent education. Meet Aisha, age 10, in 2035, living in a mid-tier city. She wears sleek augmented reality glasses. Her primary interface since smartphones faded. I wish I had this AI already available, which would just throw that as a story on your screen. Wouldn't it? I mean, imagine, motherfucker. In that future, we will probably still have videos that we watch, even though there will be so much to do yourself that you might not spend too much time doing that. And you will have your own consciousness streams, basically, you know, that you create yourself or that you have created for you. But there will be people with sophisticated minds, artists and such, who will still be able to be on a level above that, and they will then be able to, possibly even as live events often, I mean, which this is kinda is almost, if the AI would be there yet and do the thing, you know, visualization. And have some kind of interactive, or not, well, interactive too maybe, but anyway, some live show of vision and intelligence and a consciousness stream that would be something to experience and drink up, like the videos are done today, but then the people will have different emotional styles. I mean, there's some videos out there where every motion of text on the screen is accompanied by some sound, and I find that stupid. That's annoying. I mean, people do that because they've seen, oh, well, there's something like retention editing, and this is a part of that. Dude, you're not sophisticated enough. Grow up, man. If you really want to do retention editing, which is something I don't do, but this video certainly is not like that, but I mean, some of my videos have retention aspects. The Stationeer's news videos, for example, which carry the viewer basically to the end. But that's not the goal. I'm not stringing you along. That's just an artifact of, you know. Who then, you can make a video that is interesting to the viewer without this stupid annoying fluff. I mean, if I'm basically currently taking a shit while listening to what you're saying, and you're saying burp, then I wonder what am I missing? And just because you're showing a text that's saying the thing you're already saying, you don't have to put a sound there, man. In my videos I have that also sometimes, but that is then when I misspoke or said something stupid, and then or something incomplete, and then I will have a sound and a text pops up, so you become aware, oh, there's something relevant on screen that I need to become aware of, possibly even while you're not looking at it. And so, in the future, we might actually, I mean, YouTube might be very different, where the videos are often just recorded live, and yet they will still be sophisticated and great, but there will be still different qualities, and then the immediate feedback to the creator, to the people who make that, whether something is good or bad, for example, an overabundance of animation sounds, will be stronger. Currently, it is not very strong. Because, for example, the disconnect between, you first have to create that video and you drag it over here, then add the sound to the sound layer and so forth. But once you're in a flow and the AI knows what you want, it will just do that immediately, and so you could immediately change and react, and so it could be expected of you to make your videos differently, and so the energy that you experience in the feedback from the audience will be stronger. I mean, who knows, maybe in the future that we will not have a comment section but a video section where we just respond immediately, AI accompanied with visualization. I mean, it's something I just came up with. Have you ever thought of it? You know, that is of course hard to edit, but I think that the future society will also be better. We will have more perfect minds necessarily. We will be more truth infused to be even able to, well, not to say survive, but to be successful in that world, because AI as a truth agent and direct reality manifestor by all these actuators and robotics in the virtual space will force us, as we interact with them, to be more perfect, and thus we are basically evolving inevitably towards a world of truthfulness, of perfection, which is what I want to inspire all of you to actively strive towards, in action and in self-polishing and such. Anyway, so let's continue. Aisha's AI agent Lumi lives in the cloud, syncing with her glasses, school tablet and home IoT hub. Lumi's a tutor, a coach, a guide built on advanced language models with real-time knowledge access. So that's something we have also seen sometimes in science fiction stories, right? Where someone was actually reading something in on their tablet, and then was interrupted by the AI of the tablet saying, "Hey, there's breaking news. Maybe I wanna read that." Right, that's gonna be a thing. No shit. Or it will be infused. I mean, maybe some accepted concept in science will be explained to you, but then something is being published by a scientific journal, and in real time, the AI might say, but recent insights suggest there might be la 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 la. That, though, has not been confirmed deeply enough. That might just be a half sentence that will be infused in just because of immediate news awareness of the AI teaching you stuff. So what you are being taught and what someone else being taught might be different by the minute. Morning learning. Aisha wakes to Lumi's cheery voice via her glasses. Excuse me, you're telling me she's wearing glasses while asleep? That's ridiculous, man. Ready to crack that ecosystems puzzle? In augmented reality, she explores a 3D rainforest, dragging virtual species... Dragging? Virtual species to balance a food web. Oh, okay. Lumi adjusts difficulty if Aisha struggles, pulling from her past performance. For example, she aced fractions, but lacks in pattern recognition. Fractions as in divisions and such. She aced that part of education, that math part, but is not good in recognizing patterns. When Aisha grasps a concept, Lumi rewards her with a virtual badge, gamifying progress. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Also, what I've talked about earlier, this gamification. Why would we gamify things? Possibly. Why, for example, have this skill tree thing in reality? Well, you have already your access to vehicles, but not to all of them. You cannot drive a big truck, but you know, that's something you could also learn. Interesting, huh? You're being teased then to learn that too. That would then be a part of your life, not just learning for necessity and then sitting on your ass watching television when you're back home, downtime and so forth, but life itself becoming a game. Isn't that interesting? That we, the gods, which is what we are, or the one God, playing in multiple perspectives, doesn't matter, are turning reality into what it always was, but now in the coexistence perspective. We are turning it into a game. Abstract thinking. To build higher level skills, Lumi, the AI, poses open-ended challenges. Why might this forest shrink? Aisha brainstorms, Lumi nudges with questions, not answers, fostering critical thinking. She records ideas in a virtual notebook, which Lumi organizes into a mind map, teaching synthesis. What is a mind map? For those who haven't seen it yet, I mean, it's a very interesting sounding term. I don't know if I can give an exhaustive answer here, but as far as I have experienced mind mapping softwares, there's, for example, a central concept. You could say, I have a project. That is your central bubble, and otherwise there's nothing in this two-dimensional cosmos that you can zoom and scroll. And the central concept, for example, is I want to create a reminder software. And then you place a bubble next to it that says, here's the features, the things that it fundamentally should have. And this will then be connected to the central bubble. Then you might have another bubble next to the central bubble that says, these are the technologies with which I want to implement that. And, for example, interface, two-dimensional, graphical, and so forth. And then you might have sub-bubbles there detailing the interface and aspects of this. Or on the other side, with the other bubble, the other circle, where I said, these are the features it should have. Then you have the sub-bubbles with the features which are then detailed further and further. So you're going deeper and deeper into detail. But then you can zoom out again. It's kind of like it's kind of, but not quite like the project pyramid that I keep preaching, because it's an important thing to understand, that I talked about at length at the beginning of the previous video, which was episode 6, I believe. So I really, really recommend that you watch the first half hour, which is really a distinct part of that video, the first half hour of episode 6. It will really give you some wisdom, understanding, everyday life, relevant knowledge that will make your life better. If you don't already know and implement that concept, of course. But this mind map thing is kind of a different beast. It's more like detailing a thing deeper and deeper instead of making it... It's related, but it's not the same thing. Because in this pyramid, a layer, no matter for what frequency it has, deep down or high up, is connected. It's a oneness. But in the mind map, the individual branches are individual branches, disconnected. Usually. Okay, mind map. Social integration. At school, Aisha collaborates in a hybrid classroom. Lumi syncs with peers agents, suggesting group tasks. For example, designing a sustainable city. So basically you could think that the individual AI teaching agents, they go the path that you choose, that your mind drifts. Of course, they will have some kind of gravitational centers so that you, for example, eventually learn about math and such. But this would mean that naturally, by randomness, some children might gravitate towards the same thing. This would then naturally lend itself to, grouping them together and letting them together, because they have that interest in that moment. Together, let them do a thing. And that is, again, gamification of education, and education being a fundamental thing for life. That is an awesome thing to have. Currently, education is a menial task. It's a burden. It's strenuous. We hate it, basically. Well, often at least. And then it will be a game. It will be as much fun as the rest of life. Because it will be. Why will it be fun? Let's define fun. What is fun? Fun is when thy will be done. That is really the foundation of it. Fun is when that happens that you want. Now you might disagree and say, well, if all of reality, there's also something I pointed out in episode 2 or 3, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm basically shitting these out, but they are not shit, aren't they? Are they? Where I said that if we... Okay, not what I said. Let's just say it again here in this context. If you can have whatever you want, is that a good thing? If you're really wise, you might think, and you probably are at least wise to that degree, you would probably feel, that seems a bit iffy. I mean, for example, let's go so far. What if the entire cosmos were a direct physical projection by you, including gravity, including everything, including the shape of other people's bodies? Why would I go this far? Well, first of all, to point things out, contrast it. And second of all, because that's kind of quasi what we're living in, in a way. I mean, if you're seeing someone who's a fat, ugly piece of shit, then you would probably think, God damn it, I wish I hadn't seen that. Or when other people's behavior, if someone's doing something that you don't like, you wish you wouldn't have seen that. Maybe their behavior is indeed inappropriate, then that shouldn't be. But maybe their behavior is appropriate, but it just didn't fit your mood. And then what we want in that moment is just a different orchestration of reality. And so in this way, you could say that to some level, wishing to be able to project the overall thing, maybe it's still wrong, but we can see where we're coming from without being unreasonable about it, And so what if you would take that to the utmost level? That you would even be able to say, okay, this person, you know what, I'm going to give that person over there with my will directly an orgasm. How can they object? It's fun, isn't it? That would probably not be fun, except depending on the mindset or mood overall. But in principle, you can see, if we take it to the level of reality projection, in some situations, even that might not taking it too far. Depending on context, of course, it depends what community you're in, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth, social cues. So, I mean, isn't it fun to think? To just go to places where you haven't been before? I can't get enough of that shit, man. Anyway, that would feel also dangerous, because what if you have a lapse in judgment? Or, I mean, that was probably the original objection when I said, what if you could basically have anything you want with your will? Is that still fun? The objection would be, where's the surprise then? And maybe I have too much power and kind of lose the ground. Okay, good objections. What does this mean? This means that you have an emotional desire to not accidentally go there. And what does that mean? That is part of your emotional orchestra. And what is that also? It is making clear to you that you're not yet pure. That's one of the things I keep preaching. Try to become pure. Try to become one emotion, so that you can live indeed like I do from moment to moment. Because that's all you need to do. Because you will naturally keep that in balance with the future that you have to not lose, and with the past that made you. So try to become, one unified fused emotion. Because, then you would also see naturally that if we would have utter control of reality, that's not bad, but that's probably even what we're developing towards. I mean, we have more and more control over reality, right? Will this stop? Surely. Why would it, man? That has been the trend for eons, and it's now accelerating. Do you really think it would stop? How far will it go? I don't know. But it will certainly go further than we are. So we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we really want? Like I keep fucking preaching here, dude. So, for AI and for other reasons. You have to know what you really want. Purify your will. Try to be yourself. What does that mean? Well, try to find out what it means. I mean, being yourself is basically the journey of trying to find out what that means in a way. Oh, now you have found. Oh shit! What spoilers? Yeah, you have to be the question mark in this space of exclamation points that is the world around you and your body, of course. You have to be the question mark. The explorer, the one who enjoys it, the eye who looks at it, the one who is always new, so that when you watch the same film again, the frequency in which you can watch it again is higher. Because certainly I can tell you it is higher if you... I mean, I have watched, for example, the entire show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is about 60 hours, for 3 times already. I mean, this seems kind of like a waste of time, except if you're managing to get so much new out of it. And that shows if I'm taking an example like Interstellar, that's easy because the film is fucking awesome. I mean, the show Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. is also awesome, but it's such a long effort. And if that still works, then there's probably some profundity to what I'm saying here. It's not just, there's really something to it, man. The more novel your mind is, the novel the reality will be that you experience. And guess what? We're also agents. And so the novelty that we're experiencing these years in the world, it's not just coming from the outside. It's happening because we as a people are becoming more this novelty generator. And what we do here and there floods into the world, leads to lasting structures, and so forth. That's even why this process of creation of the universe is such a hard thing for us to do, fellow gods, because we're not just leaving behind the I am to dive through the absence of it and reaching then ultimately the holy eternal state of we are, but plain simply because the reality that we're creating around us will be a lasting supplier of happiness, like for example machines that we build these days, infrastructure that we made. It's a hard effort, but once it has been designed, it's kind of self-running. We just have to push a few buttons. Yeah, and that's why some novelty-infusing minds in the world can, of course, and they're all around, you have probably done that too, infuse something new in the world that will then be lasting, which overall leads to a lasting orchestra of novelty, which leads to an overall pull of novelty that accelerates. Continuing, suggesting group tasks, designing a sustainable city. Augmented reality lets them build models together, even remotely. Lumi monitors Aisha's contributions, gently coaching her on teamwork if Aisha dominates. So, that's, when I was making music with other people, I was of course trying to infuse myself here and there, and sometimes I would just put a fat beat into something that was not really a fat beat like a DJ, but more like, okay, let's put big fat techno drum here that beats every 4 counts and so forth, when in a sound that was, until then we were just doing a session, not in there, which might be off-putting by some because it's once again electronic techno-ish music, cliche maybe, which is then maybe a bit overburdening, but sometimes that makes sense, and then sometimes it evolved into something cool. And so that is not necessarily domination, that is infusing yourself. But in principle, what I did then, and what I also suggest you should do in a teamwork, you should realize that what you're doing is you're being a juggler, but what you're juggling is not the team. You're juggling the project. So what's the other people's purpose in this team then? Well, they're also jugglers. And what are they juggling? The same thing. So this means that you have to juggle. This balance of juggling is also one that has to be balanced with the others, with the amount of other people's interference with this juggling process. You have to all be touching the thing that you collaboratively connected to in a light fashion, in the same strength as the others. You have to basically sing your part of the choir instead of saying, I'm going to sing a different tune because I feel like it. Gentle does it. If they don't consider it that, and then if you fade in the background, so be it. That is how I have lived for a long time. It is not a pleasant thing, I can tell you. But I can also tell you that eventually, depending on how long you're, for example, I've been working for 30 years for this company, eventually they will perceive your qualities and you will carve your niche. And that niche will then not be one that you arbitrarily made up with some power moves that might then be distorted versus what you wanted, and what you wanted might not be a distortion versus what you really want, which you always really truly of course see when you're quietest. See also the example of having a vacation versus just having a weekend, when you want to choose what you want to do. But also, this quietness, well, or maybe I said it already. I don't know if the sentence is complete. Then this niche that you carve out for yourself will be more actually your thing, instead of something that you power move yourself towards. That's how I've experienced it. It took a long time, a lot of patience, but I mean, thy will be done is the only way to coexist. And let me tell you again, about 20 years ago, I had a mental experience that gave me basically a logically cascading insight, out of which I ultimately built my very complex theistic model of the world, which, I mean, immediately made clear to me every human being is God the creator. And that is then how I treated them. There was, for example, a scene very close to that, temporarily, close after that, where my car had been towed, and since that wasn't the first time that it had been towed from the same place, it wasn't so surprising that the people from which I was then fetching it were commenting on that, and they were indeed asking something along the lines of why, I think. Weird, I know. And then I said, yeah, stupid stays stupid, or something. That's kind of what I phrased there. I was humble before God. That is literally what I was practicing there. That was the purpose of this, truthfulness. This might seem completely weird to you. Now I look like an idiot to you. But the truth is, I was just faster than you, because that's the reality that we will all have. Except when we will all have that, it will be balanced. But when you're entering it early with a sudden insight, then yeah, sure, that lends itself to a few years of adaptation. Anyway, and I have been living this "thy will be done," and I have carved out my place in reality, and it's growing. And I think that the better you do this, the more and more boundlessly your niche, your flow in reality will actually be growing. And that is why I have the hypothesis that ultimately, and now this will sound even more ridiculous, my video channels will have billions, literally billions of subscribers. But let's move on with this crap here. If she dominates. Gently coaching a team. Evening reflection. At home, Lumi reviews Aisha's day, highlighting strength, for example, creative problem solving, and areas to grow, for example, patience. It suggests a quick VR game to practice focus, using biofeedback from her glasses to track engagement. Aisha's parents get a summary, but Lumi prioritizes her privacy. So all of that to today's people might seem kind of, I mean, you see the benefit, but you might think, that's then too detached, it's just you playing with the machine. But you know, personally, am I talking to you like an asshole, or am I talking to you in a respectful way most of the times? Am I giving this information to you in a way that you could say, that's benefit, that's interesting? Is my channel to you like an enrichment? Not a big one, I know, but you know, something, giving you something that you might not find somewhere else. Some of the Station Years news, for example, or some of the wisdom found here. Yes, but apart from my work life, I spent the entirety of my life for the last 40 years, basically. Wait, that's only 30 years, because I've no, that's 23 years, yeah. Have only spent alone with my machine, with my PC. Because that's what I prefer. Because, I mean, as much as I value people, they are just not on the level yet that I expect them to be at. And so if I want to live my will, which I find very, very profoundly, or rather, that I have a very profoundly strong relationship to, because I also respect each other people's wills. That's even what prompted this experience 20 years ago. Because I saw my own will so clearly, I saw what it means to interact with you. I am currently dealing, you, the listener, the viewer, you are God, the creator, the eternal one who chose to create the universe. That is how I view you. I don't do that actively all the time, because of course I have weaved that all in my everyday experiences, and also it's a weird thing to talk about, and so I rather not even think about it normally, but in this moment I feel like maybe just saying it, because that's the ultimate truth of it. See, and that's how I also see myself. But don't forget, that's how I see everybody. We are holy, and the future is wonderful. And so if we look at this, I mean, at some point maybe you were also like an old man screaming at clouds when it came to smartphones, but now you're using it yourself oftentimes, maybe not all the time, chatting with other people about things that don't matter, being pulled by the emotional energy pull of publishing your will into the internet by tweeting all kinds of most superficial things, like I'm currently buying some groceries and I saw someone who looked like an idiot. Ha ha, how funny, how relevant. I mean, this stuff at least is relevant that I'm tossing at you here. Maybe it's following the same drive, but it is reasonable instead of just, Anyway, smartphones at some point, but now you may be using them. Do you not think that this is also something we will adapt towards and see the benefit of? Broader picture. By 2035, 60% of kids in developed nations could use such AI agents. Integrated via AR glasses with 6G connectivity. In resource-rich settings, this shrinks learning gaps, letting kids master abstract skills by their teens already. And I think what I described there with kind of this consciousness stream, this visual, almost hallucination-like download of consciousness in audio and video, interactive with your needs and what you're saying and how you're reacting, that will be a real thing. And that's what we already have. We currently have that in the form of all the YouTube videos being pooped at us by all the creators. They're trying to find topics that might be of interest. That is interactive with you, isn't it? It's just not real time, it's just not you personally, but that is happening in a finer and finer scale. First we had television, pooping it at all people. Now we have videos. I mean, I have actually done a video or two even based upon a particular prompt that one person, maybe a question, a stationeer's question, how can I do this thing? And then I made a short video that explained that. And I'm actually looking forward to doing more such things because it feels meaningful to do. It's a strong motivation. It's cool. See, and that's kind of an interactive hallucination download learning stream that we're already having, only is very slow. But you have to see it. That's once again the ability to abstract and to think meta and take a step back, to look at the world, to see the patterns. This will accelerate, and later it will be more interactive to you personally. And at some point you will be able to have basically an immediate real-time consciousness download stream in audio and video thanks to AI and augmented reality. That will happen, surely. So, skill or abstract skills by their teens. Poorer regions lag, relying on cheaper phone-based AI, risking a sophistication divide. No rigid 825 deadline exists. AI's adaptability means lifelong learning, with society's wealth cushioning the transition. But unequal access and over-reliance on tech could leave some kids isolated or data vulnerable. Thanks. That's all for now.